And good morning. It is a Thursday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin. We on the program today, coming up this hour. This week's NFL draft segment, Vinnie Iyer from the sporting news. Later on, kind of like a sporting news day. Mike DeCourcy, of course, also with Fox Sports and Big Ten Network. Maryland back in action tonight. They're on the road at Nebraska. We'll talk to Mike about the Terps' reality. What could they still do as far as seeding is concerned over the course of the coming weeks? And also, a little bit later on this morning, Keith Law from The Athletic will join us. Where exactly are the Orioles at as an organization at this point? What kind of talent do they have left? That's why it's good that they were so active in free agency, because the organization is depleted, and you would hate to have to only be able to acquire help via trade. You would much rather do what they did and just spend significant amounts of money in free agency in order to...
No, the Orioles, Glenn, the Orioles.
Pivetta off the board. Not that anybody wanted Nick Pivetta, but Pivetta off the board. I mean, I would have taken him, for the record. Wouldn't have been at the top of my list, but why not? Nick Pivetta goes to the Padres, and so you ask, does that make it more likely that they're moving Dylan Cease? Maybe.
Good old 1-1 swap there.
I mean,
Dylan Cease.
Yeah, right.
For Nick Pivetta.
Why would you want to have Dylan Cease when you have Nick Pivetta? Yeah, maybe. Or maybe they know somebody else in their rotation is hurt, and that made them more inclined to go get Nick Pivetta. Don't know. Do not know. Could not tell you. Who else? Somebody else signed you. Oh, Bregman, right.
Yeah,
Bregman goes to
some
the
guy
Red
named
Sox.
Alex Bregman, yeah.
Yeah, I heard of him. What did he ever do? Bregman goes to the Red Sox. That's good. That's good.
They said he's going to play second, I think.
Is that what they said? Really?
I thought so, yeah.
Okay. Good for them. Good for them. Hey, man, the Orioles got Sagano, baby. What do we do? Why are we pretending like we're not fired up? Plus, it's best shape of their life season. Everybody's down there. Every report is positive. It's the best time, right? Like a bunch of the beat writers were just tweeting out nothing. And it's not. I get it. That's their job. They got to go down there and tweet out nothing. But there is nothing. Grayson Rodriguez says he's all systems go. Cool. Great. I got that going for us, which is something.
Jackson Holliday's taking swings. Jackson Holliday's ripped.
He's ripped, huh? He's ripped.
Jake Calvin Meyer said he's ripped.
Look at that. Kobe Mayo feels like he's got a good chance. Of what? Don't know. But he's got a good chance. Everybody's in the best shape of their lives. Hope springs eternal. Rock and roll. I'm sorry. I wish. Look, man.
What, you wish you liked baseball?
No, I as I've said a million times, I'll be fired up when they play a baseball game, because then we'll have baseball back in our lives, and we'll talk ourselves into the possibility that maybe everything could work out. And again, we can't say that it won't. We can't see the future. But
You sound pretty bleak over there.
hey, man, just would have been nice. It would have been nice to upgrade the team in one area. Like that, if one part of the team we could say we thought was better than it was last year, that would be nice. Nope.
Backup catcher, maybe?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I guess probably not.
Like could hit more home runs. I'll give you that. They could definitely get more home runs from their backup catcher than they got last year. Is the backup catcher position better? Defensively, probably not.
I think they think they'll have a closer this year.
When we see it.
So that's probably better.
Yeah, if again you get to that part, let's see it, and then we can react to it accordingly. Hey man, they're down there. They're throwing balls. Lots of
They're all, more friendly with each other than they were probably a year ago. I guess.
How do you know that?
Well, they take
I know
pictures.
they went to Disney World.
Yeah, they went to Disney World.
Everybody was very excited about it. They went to Disney World. Jalen Hurts went to Disney World, too. I don't know if they bumped into each other. If they planned some sort of event.
Big day at Disney.
Sorry. I wish. But, yeah, Nick Pivetta to San Diego. And, look, I get it. Somebody would say, what are the Padres doing with all these pitchers? And you would say, hey, maybe that is.
Are you doing your what's going on in San Diego?
Yeah, 100%. That's the old Windy. What's going? Everybody's asking what's going on in San Diego. What's happening? What's going on with the Padres? I mean, I think it's totally possible that the Padres said to themselves, hey, do you see that team that we have to compete with? Maybe we need more. Now, it seems unlikely.
Or they just give up, yeah.
Based on everything that had been reported, the thought would be that the Padres believe they can move one of Cease or Michael King. Or that they need to move one of Cease or Michael King. It really does seem crazy to me. Like, what is the actual plan here? But we've talked about that before, that, like, that's sort of the Rays model. With just without spending any money. The Rays model is coming and going. Bring players in when it makes the most sense, contract-wise, and then move them to try to re-solidify the organization. There's never 1 year. You always try to keep the window open. Now, that hasn't necessarily worked out for the Rays in recent years, but for a long time it did. And the Padres might be trying to add to it. Well, we can do that while also spending money, which was the part the Rays never got around to. The Padres might be saying, let's check every box. Let's spend money, and let's be shrewd in the way that we go about it so that we have more talent if we want to go acquire someone else. I'm not opposed to the Orioles being in the market for Dylan Cease or Michael King, because how could I be? This is a beggars can't be choosers situation. If you ask me big picture, is the best way for the Orioles to go about trying to win the World Series to constantly acquire pitchers who are on the final year of their contract? No, definitively not the best way.
If it is Corbin Burns, maybe, but
it's not the best way. It will never be the best way, no matter who it is. But if it's that or not acquiring a pitcher, kind of got me up against the wall a little bit. I think the Orioles need another starting pitcher, a higher-end starting pitcher. I don't think they need to bring back Hal Gibson, who, to my knowledge, is still available. And if that's the only way they can do it,
what's Jordan Lyles up to?
I don't know what Jordan Lyles is up to. He couldn't have signed a multi-year deal, right, in Kansas City. That's not possible. It had to be
He's a free agent.
Yeah. I don't think that's
the whole gang back together.
Don't think that's going to be the one either. Got to be honest with you. Don't think that's going to be the play. But if this is what they're down to, is that, like, hey, we tried to bring back Corbin Burns. Maybe they'd even say we poked around on some of these other guys. I find that unlikely. I give much more credence to the report that they were never going to be in the market for any of the pitchers that declined a qualifying offer. Again, not that Nick Pivetta was at the top of anyone's list. But if they're saying this is what we're going to do, it's this or nothing, well, then we're probably going to say to ourselves, okay, do it. Go ahead. Not because it's the best way. It is a way, and you take it at this point. Because you can use the help. Now, this is really 11th hour that we're talking about. Like, we kept talking throughout the offseason about how that they didn't make the Corbin Burns move until late in the offseason. There's a difference between late in the offseason and in the season. Pitchers and catchers have reported it's not the offseason anymore. That doesn't mean they can't do it. It's just, it's kind of wild that this is the timing that we're talking about. To be fair, they've signed the players. Nelson Cruz showed up during spring training once upon a time. It's not like you can't do this, and it's a little bit different. There's always fears about a starting pitcher signing late, that they don't get a full spring training and they're not really ready. It's a little bit different if you're making a trade for somebody who's been ramping up, who's been with a team, who's ready to go, than it is signing a free agent that didn't have a full spring training and you were just trying to hope that they were doing the right things and they weren't facing live batters. I'm not gonna say, hey, it's too late, don't make the move. Yes, make the move if it's available, and if it's for a price that's reasonable to pay for someone who's only got 1 year left, or if it's somebody that's open to signing. If Dylan Cease is willing to take the money that you were trying apparently to give Corbin Burns, let's talk about it. I don't think either of these guys are going to deny themselves the right to go to free agency next offseason. This is the wrong time to try to be negotiating with someone. They got 1 year, and then they get to negotiate with everybody. Why would they just negotiate with you? Unless, again, you're willing to overpay. I don't think that Dylan Cease is worth the exact number that you were allegedly trying to offer Corbin Burns. I think Corbin Burns is a bit more valuable than Dylan Cease. But if that's what it takes in order to make this happen, is to put it out there to Dylan Cease's camp, like, hey, we want to do this, but we don't want to do this if we're just going to lose you in a year. And Dylan Cease's camp says, hey, well, this is the number. Go ahead and give us that number, and then you don't have to worry about it. And that number is the Corbin Burns number. Then fine, overpay. For Christ's sakes. I imagine someone actually being mad that you overpaid for a good baseball player. Holy hell. I'm going to be mad that you overpaid for Trevor Rogers. That's a different conversation. We're not talking about Trevor Rogers. We're talking about Dylan Cease. Do I think they're going to do it? I have no idea. I don't know. It's super weird to me that we've gotten this far into the process and that, if we really had a lengthy conversation about this, I'd be flummoxed. I'm flummoxed by a lot of things. I'm flummoxed that there's a new ownership group and a year in. They didn't bother to try to fix the Masson thing either. Like,
they moved the wall in, though.
They did. They moved the wall and got that going.
Heard there's a new sound system.
Is that's in place already?
I know it's coming. I know they were definitely messing with it over the offseason.
Okay.
I hope so.
All right. Well, then, that's not nothing. I'll look forward to that. 8 spring training games on Masson. And again, I'm the wrong guy because I'm not going to sit and watch all these spring training games. It's not for me. But I get it.
You're right. It won't fully be in place until next season.
That's what I thought. You're paying for Masson. There's no reason. It would have been near the top of the list for a new ownership group to say, hey, there's this thing, this entity that you now also own that's kind of been a dud, that only exists for these 162, and it's not even 162 because a handful of end up being on national TV, these 157 baseball games, and otherwise lays utterly dormant. Maybe you think about doing something with that. Anything. One thing that baseball fans here all tend to agree on is, well, at least we'd like to have the option of watching the spring training games. Would be nice. Maybe you don't have to go all out. You don't have to do the whole production. You weren't even doing the whole production for the handful of games that you do. You're having somebody sit in a booth in Baltimore and watch a video feed. Fine. There's awkward cut-ins of pregame interviews with bench coaches from the Pirates. Like, well, right now, as you can see, the Pirates are interviewing their bench coach, and we're not going to really be able to listen to that because I'm sitting in a booth and it's awkward enough, but at least it's the option. Fine. Do it on the cheap. Who cares? It's spring training. Just do it. Just have the option in place. I'm flummoxed that almost a year in, these things that you would think would have been high priorities, the things that if the new ownership group had walked in and asked 10 Orioles fans, hey, what are things, real Orioles fans, not casual, what are things that would be high on your list? Spend real money. Try to lock down any of these young players. Fix Masson. I don't know what would be fourth on the list. I'm not sure what it would have been.
Move the wall back in. They did that.
Yeah, clearly that would have been very high on the list. The sound system maybe would have made it on the list.
I think so.
It sounds terrible at the ballpark, and it sounded terrible so that might be the one. Maybe. That would have gotten there eventually on the list. The first three, get around to it. Maybe not. So I'm flummoxed by that. So I can't tell you. I can't tell you what they're thinking. I don't know. I've poked around. I think a lot of people have I would tell you that part of it is there's a lot of change within the organization on other levels. Like we know they brought in a new president of baseball operations. They made other changes within the structure of the team. And maybe they're not, I want to say they're not, it's not an excuse. I can't make that an excuse. I was oddly disheartened by the announcement. Not that I expected that suddenly they're going to say, hey, all the games will be broadcast this year. But I was like, boy, this really feeds into the people that are like, hey, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It really does. It's something so small. Hey, we need to put the spring training games on TV. We need to. Even if we can't do a full operation, even if we got to get them on TV. It's a small thing that we can do to show that the times have changed. I don't know why, because I'm not the guy. I really won't. You can't get me. We do it all the time here. I'm like, I'll put it on for an inning. And then by the time somebody wearing the number 74 is into the game, I guess that maybe shouldn't be the case. By the time somebody wearing the number 91 is into the game.
Craig Tatum,
Yeah, I'm like, no, done. If I made it that far. And again, if they were all available to me, I probably wouldn't. Part of the reason why I put them on when they're available is just because so few of them are available. If they were all available to me, I don't know how many of them I would look at. Certainly wouldn't be as many. That to me, Luke Jones took a shot at him over that. I couldn't believe it. Luke Jones, who I don't think has ever taken a shot at anyone in his life. And I love Luke, and everybody knows that. One of my favorite people. Luke Jones tweeted out yesterday. Oh, God, what was the tweet? Below is the Orioles spring training broadcast schedule. After televising just 7 Grapefruit League games in 2024, Masson is all the way up to 8 this year. He sounds
excited. Well, that's not a shot.
Followed up with
he's applauding.
The Pirates, who play right up the road in Bradenton, will have 12 spring home games televised by Sportsnet Pittsburgh, which is also scheduled to carry 7 more opponent telecasts from the opposing team's ballpark. So 19 total. Luke Jones.
Who?
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, who is this guy? He's never been negative in his life. But I felt what he was feeling, which is, come on. Give them something. Show in any way that something's different. And don't hide behind the well, right now that operates the same. No, step in. Say, hey, this isn't okay. The fan base doesn't appear to like this. Let's do something about that. Let's not default to the way things have been. I felt his frustration. I did. I understood it. And again, without it being the thing that I care dramatically about, I would tell you that I share it. For different reasons, but I share it. Boy, it's going to be Awfully ironic when we announce what's on the next cover of Press Box. All right, today's show is brought to you by the CIAA tournament. Griffin.
Baltimore is welcoming the excitement of the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament back to CFG Bank Arena. Coming up soon, February 25th through March 1st. Get your tickets. They are available now at Ticketmaster.com. Again, head over to Ticketmaster.com and get your tickets for the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament at CFG Bank Arena, February 25th through March 1st.
All right, it's time for this week's NFL Draft segment. Joining us this week, he has the Baltimore Ravens taking a tackle in the first round. He is Vinnie Iyer, covers the NFL for Sporting News, and he's back with us here on GCR. Vinnie, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always good to catch up with you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Vinnie, I'm guessing based on the first mock draft that you put out that you do not think the Ravens are going to prioritize come hell or high water. Ronnie Stanley is back on this team next season.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him walking pretty easily here. He's a little bit older. We know he's had his share of injuries. And I think he seems like a prime candidate for a plug-and-play, the latest plug-and-play for the Chiefs tackle at this point. So he could end up there. There are some teams that could
Vinnie,
just try to look at him as a
Vinnie, you can't just say that to us. That sounds like nightmare fuel, man. Can you imagine the Ravens? And I get it, like this is what they do, and they try to say right player, right place. But the hell that it would be if we're sitting here next January and the Ravens lose the Kansas City Chiefs because they solved their offensive line by adding Ronnie Stanley is a hell that I can't think about in this moment, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't really worked out. I'll just tell you that. I mean, like between Juwan Taylor and Orlando Brown Jr. and all these dudes that they've put on the ends, they're just basically plugging holes. I'll just say that. So if the Chiefs sign an offensive tackle, a veteran guy, it may not be always the best thing for them. So it might be the best thing for the team replacing him. So I'll bring it from that angle where the guy that I like for the Ravens is Josh Carnley out of Oregon. There's a lot of guys now, offensive tackle, guards. I mean, these guys have really exploded since the Senior Bowl, and some things have happened where they're being perceived as guys that can go in the back end of the first round. So I think it's still in flux with a lot of these positions, but I see offensive linemen. I think they were definitely the winners at the Senior Bowl with a lot of them moving up, and I think we'll have a lot of action inside and outside in the first round.
Yeah, obviously save for the one highlight of what Mike Green putting him on the ground. But other than that, yes, no doubt about it. I want to go back just because it's a complicated question, Vinny. I still feel like the Ravens would be best suited to try to, as much as possible, run it back next season. As frustrating as it was to lose, that's their best bet, is to try to run it back as much as possible. I know everything you're saying about Ronnie Stanley. The price could go to a place where, given his injuries, you just don't find yourself being comfortable about it. That said, the Ravens have been a dramatically better team when Ronnie Stanley has been on the field than when he's not been on the field. Like, is it too much of a risk that they move on from Ronnie Stanley, and with the Super Bowl window kind of being right now and not knowing how long Derrick Henry can continue to be Derrick Henry, I know they moved on from 3/5 of their offensive line, and for the most part it worked out. It took a little while, but they got there. But his left tackle, is that too bold for a team trying to win a Super Bowl to just say, we're moving on, we need to make shrewd business decisions and saving what, the difference in what it would be with $5 million. It's $2 million more than we'd be willing to pay for Ronnie Stanley, so we have to move on.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it two ways. You could say that because of him, it was a little bit easier to have some of the younger guys gel, or you could look at, hey, we are confident that we're going to find the right guy to replace him and maybe invest that money somewhere else. I don't know. You have to find something that's going to help you get over the top. The problem is with the Ravens is it's just execution at this point. You know how good they can be. You know what the offense is right now with Lamar Jackson in the system. You know everything about their team. Basically, it's just coming through in the playoffs and not making those mistakes. And in those tighter games that you have that opportunity, and just not making that critical mistake against the Chiefs or the Bills in a big moment. So that's sometimes the most frustrating, right? You can't really point to something. I think it's a little bit easier to point to actually the Chiefs in a weird way with their loss with the Eagles, because you can see all the things that broke down all at once, right? For the Ravens, to me, a lot didn't break down. It was just not making those plays. So sometimes that makes it harder to evaluate a team there and what they can do to actually get better. And if the simple thing, as you suggested, is just keeping what you have intact.
He's Vinnie Iyer from the Sporting News. He's with us here on GCR. Vinny, if the Ravens do, however they would do it, whether it's getting a new deal done, whether it's slapping a tag on, if the Ravens do end up keeping Ronnie Stanley, I assume that your priority for them with their first pick would change. Would it default to you to edge rush, or is there somewhere else that you look at and say, I still think this is somewhere that needs to be a bigger priority for them?
Well, I think edge rush, anything that they could get to help with some of their coverage issues, everyone was looking at Brandon Stevens and a lot of the problems he had. So maybe getting a more reliable guy there in that spot would help. And look, they did do it last year with Wiggins, so I don't know if they would want to go back there. But edge rush could always get a boost here. I think that's a position that we know just dominated in the Super Bowl. They had a bunch of guys, and depth was the key for the Eagles. It wasn't just having these guys out there, but just having Brandon Graham back to keep them fresh, right? With Josh Sweat and what he was able to do. And they had Jalix Hunt, a young guy that came on as a rookie there. So I think just adding someone to that rotation is pretty valuable for them in terms of win-now window. You look at just someone who can get to the quarterback in a critical situation. You never know what it's going to be. And then you saw what happened with the Eagles. Everyone rose together in that team effort in their biggest game, inside and outside. So you get the outside kind of going here, and you never know who you're going to land on that could have a big, big year. I mean, you look at Jared Verse from last year. I think a lot of people didn't know how his production would transition, but you saw that right away.
I brought up Mike Green earlier because that highlight from the Senior Bowl against Connerly, but it feels like everybody is very high on this group of edge rushers, like that there's a belief that this is as deep a group as there have been. Are you as high on the edge rushers, almost to the point where like maybe you don't even have to find that guy in round one of this year's draft?
Yeah, you kind of have to weigh all these, because all of a sudden I'm starting to look at the draft, and I don't know if it was first glance, maybe we were so worried about the quarterbacks, right? And we weren't thinking about the other positions. But if you start evaluating, running backs have got a boost. Guards and tackles have got a boost. Edge rushers are on the rise here. Defensive tackles are really getting a surge here. So I think this positional depth is pretty good away from quarterback in this draft. And I think that's going to be helpful. Maybe wide receiver would have maybe some shortcomings, but you look at tight end for a lot of teams that are trying to catch up to what the Ravens have. They're going to also have success here doing that. So, yeah, you have to weigh all the options, and you just may end up with a bunch of options you could take later that could help, and then you jump on maybe the guy you like the most early on the board.
You one of the things that was interesting to me about your first mock draft, and you're not the only one, you're far from the only one, is that you don't have quarterbacks going 1-2. You have obviously Cam Ward going 1, but then you don't have Cleveland taking. I think to me this is almost crazy, right? And it's not you that I'm pointing at, because I think it's totally plausible given how many people are saying it. The Browns have sat back and watched what it's like to have a generational talent. Like this theory of, do you take a risk at quarterback when you could have a generational player that's sitting there for you? The Browns are, like, to me, the example of the team that knows this better than anyone. They've had a generational player, and they have zero to show for it. Nothing other than a disgruntled generational talent who wants out because he hasn't been able to win in that city. I know there are questions about Shedeur Sanders, but how do the Browns not take a quarterback given they can't pay a quarterback because they have so much money sunk into a failed quarterback? How do they not do everything in their power to try to get a quarterback on an affordable contract to try to save this operation?
Yeah, the question is, does this one move does everything for what you need? Or, like, if your team's going to start breaking apart, do you want to put a young quarterback in this environment? Now, I know teams don't always think that way, but I think you have to really say is Sanders the guy because, again, I mean, they probably had the guy to some degree that would have helped them win a few more games at Baker Mayfield, but they just didn't think he was good enough. Look, they shot the moon, or they shot for the moon, and Deshaun Watson, and they're looking really bad for it. And I don't know if they want to just go the bridge route now. You could probably get Kirk Cousins on the cheap and just try to transition and hope that you have some better prospects next year in the draft. So it really comes down to how much they like Sanders and Ward. I mean, I don't think necessarily Ward, where I have him going to the Titans at 1, is a lock. It's trending in that direction only because I think the Titans are sick of that, right? They don't want to play this bridge game with Will Levis. So I think the Browns, I think having that Deshaun Watson contract, being a bit stuck with it through at least one more year, I think it's very challenging. So I think it just comes down to, do they think Sanders is the guy that's going to fix all this and be their 10-year franchise quarterback, or is someone else going to be a better player for them, and then they have to have quarterback needs elsewhere to bridge to where they want to be? So it's very complicated for them. It's not as easy. I mean, the Titans, it's more direct, right? There's no real option they're hanging their hat on right now. The Giants, pretty direct what you want to do here. So I think for them it's a little bit more complicated because of what they invested in Watson and the ridiculous amount of guaranteed money.
Do you think they're ultimately going to move Garrett?
I think they're going to try their best. I mean, they're going to have to get a pretty good offer. I don't know if they can do anything to convince him to stay at this point. I mean, it seems like maybe the bridge has been burned a bit. So I think it just depends what kind of offer they get, but I think they'll jump on any reasonable offer for him. I think they'll come. I think teams are in a bit reassessment mode there to see if they want to make the swing for the fences, see how much it will cost them, because it is significant cost to get Garrett. It's going to handcuff and maybe dictate a lot of the rest of your offseason.
Is it still worth paying like 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett at this point in his career?
I mean, it comes down to the desperation of the team. Now, I would not necessarily give them 2 first-rounders. I think you give them a first for sure, but then maybe multiple second-rounders, or try to kick the first-rounder down the line a few years, because, again, he's played really well. He's put up a lot of numbers. He's still in his prime, but we're getting close, right, to where you're not going to necessarily see the same level of play the Browns got from him when he was the younger player. So at some point, if you give him a multi-year deal, I think you'll see those diminishing returns. So I would just be very careful if I'm that team, that I do everything I can to make this a short-term fix and don't give up too much there later that could really help your team.
He is Vinnie Iyer. Of course, you can always find his work at the Sporting News, and we're going to link up his mock draft from a little while back, so you can check that out. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Iyer. That's Vinnie with an I-E and then Iyer, I-Y-E-R. Vinnie, is there anything else we can plug for you, man?
Not much else except just plugging away on the Locked On Fantasy Football show. So if you want to still hear about fantasy football as we look ahead to 2025, we're talking about it year-round there. So check us out.
Vinnie, always appreciate taking the time for us, man. Thanks so much for hopping on. Let's talk again real soon, all right?
All right, thank you, guys.
Vinnie Iyer, Sporting News, with us here on GCR. Stan the Fan Charles caught up with new Fox 45 sports reporter AJ Gersh. You can find that right now, facebook.com/PressBoxSports, youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, PressBoxOnline.com/video. All of Stan's shows brought to you by the Costas Inn. When we come back in, our buddy Mike DeCourcy, bracketologist for Fox Sports, Big Ten Network. What's the reality for the Terps? This is a tough one tonight at Nebraska, but like if they're gonna, move up, they kind of have to win this game, right? We're gonna talk to him about that next. Glenn Clark Radio.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland. But don't worry, protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
You're gonna love February at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Sweeten your Valentine's Day with a chocolate bar February 13th and 14th. Pamper yourself and your partner with Valentine's Day spa discounts February 10th through 21st. Celebrate the Year of the Snake and win a Lunar New Year luxury brand collection February 28th. Plus more ways to play, dine, and win all month. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from driveeasymd.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at driveeasymd.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR's Continue Along on a Thursday edition of the program. Into the postseason in local high school basketball. You want to find out all of the brackets. About to talk brackets with Mike DeCourcy. You can find out your own brackets. Find out a little bit more about the teams themselves, the players to watch. Go right now at countysports.zone. It's countysports.zone. It's proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Everything you need to know about high school hoops, all high school sports, frankly, here in the state of Maryland, is we'll get through hoops playoffs and then right into the spring, baseball, softball, boys and girls lacrosse. But they've got everything for every school, every level, private and public schools, every part of the state. They've got you covered with information, news, everything you could possibly want for high school sports. Countysports.zone. It's proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. As we mentioned, tonight, Maryland on the road at Nebraska, coming off a home win over Rutgers on Sunday. Our next guest, in addition to covering college basketball for the Sporting News, you see him on Big Ten Network. He's also the bracketologist for Fox Sports. Right now, he has Maryland as a 7 seed in the East. They'd faced West Virginia. Just saw that a couple years ago in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Joining us once again here on the program, he's our friend Mike DeCourcy. He's with us on GCR. Mike, it's Glenn. It's always good to catch up with you, sir. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Good morning, Glenn. How are you?
Everything is all right. It's nice, unlike a year ago. We didn't really have much of a reason to talk college hoops in this area. It's nice that there is a relevant reason to do it at this point. I'm interested in it because we have sort of dealt with like a will the real Maryland please stand up situation this season, because at times you look at them and you say, my gosh, they look like they could beat anybody. And then there are times where you look at them and you say, yeah, they don't look like they could beat anybody. Now, for the most part, they've been very good. Obviously, they've been really good at home. But when just generically you look at this Maryland team, how good do you believe they are or are capable of being?
Oh, I think they're capable of being very good. And look, they have had struggles. I mean, the Washington game, for instance, hard to explain that away, but it's not that uncommon, really, for the teams that are very good and have potential to be special. That sort of slippage is not uncommon. I mean, St. John's last night against Villanova.
Right.
It's not quite. Villanova's a better basketball team than Washington is, but it's the same concept. It's hard to be at your best every night. I think the only thing that's really weighing Maryland down in the end is the fact that they didn't play in November and December the level of schedule that they might have. And here's the thing about that. You play what you need to play to get good. I don't ever complain about, there's a lot of my colleagues who will, when the schedules start to come out in July and August, start ripping guys for being gutless and all of that. And sometimes there are coaches who have completely overturned their rosters, or everybody graduated or whatever. And you play who you need to play to get good, because if you're in a league like the Big Ten or the SEC or the Big 12, you better be good when you get there. Because if you're not, you're in huge trouble. You can't figure it out when you get to conference play. You have to be ready to rock when you're starting to play in January only Big Ten teams or only SEC teams. If you aren't ready for that, you're over. And I look at Arkansas as a team that just wasn't quite ready for whatever reason, and it's not because of their schedule, but they just weren't ready when they got to January, and it cost them the whole month.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're starting to play better and starting to figure it out, but that puts you in a significant deficit. Maryland played who they needed to play to get good, and when conference play started in January, that's when we started to see them play very well.
I wonder if, Mike, that would kind of explain, because I feel like there are Maryland fans who say, hey, this team, we see them sitting at 16th in the net rankings. Why would they be a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament? And I think that wins above bracket wins above bubble is one that stands out to me. Can you explain a little bit more about why the profile right now, despite Ken Pom, net all giving them a higher number, isn't quite of the level of being like a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, well, I'm glad for the introduction of wins above bubble, because I'm not sure why it took that, but for many years there have been two different metrics. Probably for about the last 5 or 6 years, there have been two different brands of metrics that are specifically cited on the NCAA tournament resume for each team. What the committee calls their team sheets, and there are the results-based metrics, which the wins above bubble would be one. And then there's also KPI and strength of record. And then there are the predictive metrics, which are Ken Pom and BPI from ESPN and T-Rank from Bart Torvik, those three. And then the net is basically another predictive metric. They've never acknowledged it fully, but it is. And so those metrics will tell you how powerful you are. Like, how many teams do you just blow right off the floor?
Mm-hmm.
But the other ones are basically just, who did you play, where did you play them, and how did you do? And in the results metrics, Maryland factors out to be about an 8 seed, somewhere between a 7 and an 8. And so that's why in my bracket they lean toward that. They're not a low 7 seed. I mean, they're pretty close to breaking through to that 6 line. But that's why they're there instead of the 4 or 5, probably 5, that the predictive metric would suggest.
Is there room, given that, say, the SEC just seems to be sort of swallowing everyone up in all of this, is there room for that to change significantly? Would it take, literally winning every game the rest of the way for that to change significantly? Or, again, based on what you talk about, their best non-conference wins were Villanova and Syracuse on neutral floors. Is it kind of, this is going to be what it's going to be, short of them somehow running the table, maybe winning the Big Ten tournament, something like that?
No, I don't think they need to run the table or anything like that. And I don't think that they are locked into, I mean, they're not going to be a 1 seed, I can tell you that, and they're probably not getting up to a 2, but there is room for them to improve their seed.
Okay.
The interesting thing about schedule, though, is that they only have 2 games left against 3, I should say, starting with tonight against Nebraska. 3 games left against teams that are likely in the field. Or in the case of Michigan or Michigan State, they're almost certainly in the field. I don't use lock until you can lose every single game the remainder of the way and definitely be in. And we're getting closer to where teams like Michigan and Michigan State would fit that. We're getting closer to where Maryland would fit that. But they only have 3 of those. So I think it's important to win at least 2 of those games. The Michigan State game is a home game. The Michigan and Nebraska games are both away. If you want to significantly alter your seed, I think winning one of those 2 road games would be good. And then you can't really afford to lose too many of the non-tournament games. But the good news in that department is that almost all of those are at home. Iowa, SC, Northwestern. The only one that's a road game is Penn State. That's the shortest trip that the Terps can make. And it's honestly right now, Penn State's so broken with the injuries they've had. I'm not saying that it's an automatic, but it's as comfortable a road game as you're going to get in the league right now.
Mike DeCourcy is with us in GCR. Mike, the irony is that, like, Maryland never wins at Penn State. It's just this bizarre. And I know that, like, some of those Maryland teams weren't very good, but since they've joined this league, I don't know how to explain it. They never win there. It is such a bizarre thing that we almost kind of assume it. Like that, we hear what you're saying, but everybody back here is like, yeah, they're not winning there. They never do. It's just the way that it works. Mike, again, in like that, let's just say that all plays out the way that you describe it, right? They win the night. Maybe they win at home against Michigan State. They lose at Michigan. They handle their business in the other games. What does that look like? Is a 4 seed really in play, perhaps, if they do those things that you're talking about?
Yeah, and then, of course, you'd have to follow it up by doing well. And well is very hard to define without a bracket, but they would have to do well. To get to a 4, they would have to do well in the Big Ten tournament. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's there for them. It's certainly available. And if they're anywhere near that, if they're anywhere near that performance that we just described and do okay in the Big Ten tournament, then I think you could get to a 5. And there's not a huge difference between a 5 and a 4, except for that persistent threat of the 5-12 upset. It's always out there. And I can tell you the 12s are pretty good. I mean, McNeese, we don't know for sure they have to win their autos, but McNeese and either Irvine or San Diego, those teams are very good. It could be Akron, could be Yale. Those teams on that 12 line are pretty good. So there is incentive to try to get yourself up to that 4 seed.
You also get to wear a different color jersey in a potential second-round matchup. So you have that going for you as well. Mike, one more just on Maryland, then I want to touch on a couple other things, right? Is this? Do you feel like this is Kevin Willard putting his stamp on that? Like Maryland fans can be comfortable. Hey, last year was kind of a bizarre scenario where it didn't work out, but like what we're seeing now, based on what he did in year 1, that Maryland fans can be comfortable. This can be the standard for Kevin Willard teams to be in the mix more frequently than they're not moving forward.
Oh yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, he's a very capable coach. I think that he's done great work. He did really excellent work at Seton Hall. I think he's done a nice job at Maryland. I think last year, I don't know whether I would call it an optimistic evaluation or whatever, but the guards just weren't ready to be Big Ten level successes last year, and that's where it hurt them. I think they certainly had a front court that was capable of winning in the Big Ten, but the backcourt, Deshaun Harris-Smith, just wasn't quite ready to be a Big Ten point guard, and that hurt them. And this year they made sure that they had that position covered by bringing in Jacoby Gillespie, and he's done great.
Yep.
I think that's what you can expect from Maryland for sure. Now, what you have to remember is that in an 18-team Big Ten and a 16-team SEC, and I think there are 16 in the Big 12, and I forget how many there are in the ACC now, depending on football or basketball. But in that world, there's going to be more fluctuation, and especially with the transfer portal thing, the immediate eligibility, there's going to be more fluctuation. It's going to be a little bit more like you see in the professional leagues, that even programs and franchises that have it figured out are going to have some down years.
North Carolina,
and that's
for
something
example.
I think that's true. And I think Carolina, there's a move because they had the bad 23 year with the chemistry issues on the team. But I mean, in between that, there was a number one seed in a Final Four run.
Right.
And so I'm not sure that I'd be in a rush to do that, but that you're going to have teams that get it wrong. And this Carolina team, since you brought it up, I mean, they just didn't get the front court right at all.
Yep.
And I think they have to reassess what they're prioritizing when they recruit big guys. I mean, there's just not enough toughness in that front court, and they have to make sure that they get guys who are going to battle. If you watch St. John's Villanova last night, for whatever else has gone wrong with Villanova, I mean, if you weren't battling in that game, you were losing. I mean, you were losing big. I mean, St. John's went all the way to the final 5 seconds in that game because they battled. But a team that didn't battle was going to get hammered.
Well, I guess I know I said the last one in Maryland, but you bring up big men. I for a little while there's been some inconsistency the last few weeks with Derek Queen. He's a freshman, right? Like I do acknowledge that. But I feel like there were some Maryland fans that were trying to talk themselves into, see, this is why he'd be better off if he didn't leave after this year. But I think what we saw on Sunday is a reminder of why that's just not practical. Like that what his ability to take over a game and his ability to at least stretch, like he's just going to be too desirous to the NBA to think there's any practical scenario where Derek Queen is back at Maryland next season.
Yeah, what Derek Queen needs is the NHL rules. And the more I watch basketball now, the more I think that. A guy like Derek Queen, and the NBA doesn't believe in college basketball in the way that the NFL believes in college football.
Draft him and then let him keep developing after that?
Yeah. I mean, that's what they do in hockey. They draft players and they say, oh, yeah, go to Harvard and play.
Right.
We'll get to you. And I think it works great for them. And I think that, I do think that Derek Queen would absolutely benefit from another year at Maryland. But I also think he's probably going to be a top 10 pick. If there's any inkling that he's not, then I think he should stay because I think he's that good. But if as one sees, he's certainly capable of being a top 10 pick, and that's what's likely in place when we get to May or June, then I think he should absolutely. I would absolutely understand if he decides that's what's for him.
Mike, is the SEC really this much better than everybody else?
Yes, in some ways, yes. I think that their top teams, the Auburn and Alabama, are really extraordinary. But I mean, we did see Alabama lose some non-conference games, like at Purdue, et cetera. I think they lost one or two others. So we know that they're not out of reach. But one of the things that the league did was they were very smart about how they scheduled. Auburn and Alabama, which were known to be coming back with significant teams, scheduled unbelievably hard. Auburn's schedule was absurd, and I didn't know that they were going to be this good, but I guess they did. And so they went out and they handled it, and that really helped. And then there were teams like Florida that weren't really sure, and so they scheduled a couple of tough games and then a lot of middleweights. And look, when you only schedule a couple tough games, you better win them, and they did. And the same thing for like Oklahoma. Oklahoma gets Michigan on a neutral floor, and they win that. Tennessee schedules a little better than Florida and Oklahoma. They go to Illinois, and they get that. So the thing is, even though the scheduling was smart, they had to win the games, and they did. That doesn't mean when we get to March that it's going to be 4 SEC teams in the Final Four. It's not. That's. I mean, it could be, but that's not a guarantee. That's why we play these games. And you go back to 2011, and there were 11 Big East teams in the field, and it seemed like that league was really better than everybody else, and it probably was. But when the tournament started, they only got 2 teams into the Sweet 16 out of 11.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get them, I don't know, maybe they would have gotten more, but the 2 that got there beat Big East teams to get there. UConn beat Cincinnati. They're in your backyard. I think it was whatever they are calling the MCI Center now.
Capital One,
and
sure,
then,
yes.
Yeah, and then Marquette beat Syracuse up in Cleveland, and I was there for that game. And so that's how it could happen. I mean, they could get many teams into the Sweet 16 just by beating one another.
That's a fairly fair point, right? Like that there's so many of them. I didn't even think about that. There's just so damn many of them. Mike DeCourcy, where are we seeing you in the and when are we seeing you in the coming days?
Yeah, I will be on BTN on Saturday for our game telecast on Saturday, as well as for the big show. And then every Tuesday from now until the end of the regular season, I will be on the noon Big Ten Today program discussing my Tuesday bracket update. I do the brackets for Fox every Tuesday and Friday on the Fox social channels, CBB on Fox, and then still writing regularly for the Sporting News at TSN Mike. You can find all my work, or at sportingnews.com.
And we will link up your most recent brackets on our Twitter account at Glenn Clark Radio as well. Mike DeCourcy, always appreciate you, man. Thank you for spending the time with us, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again as we move towards the NCAA tournament.
Anytime, Glenn. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Mike DeCourcy with us here on GCR. And I understand exactly, like, this is, it's funny because I presented it to Patrick Stevens the way that I did on Tuesday, and he was like, I don't know if it's must win on Thursday night, but I think Mike DeCourcy says it really well. Like, if you don't win this, then it's going to require you to, like, go win at Michigan to get to the higher end. If you're just going to be a 7 seed, then, you know, hold serve at home. You'll be all right. But if you're trying to move up, if you're trying to get into that, and as he points out, there's not a huge difference between 5 and 4, and there's not. If you're trying to get into that 5-4 range, then the math is you got 3 good opportunities to get a quality win. You got to win at least 2 of them. Well, while Michigan State's the best team of those 3, even though they lost to Indiana, which is wild. While they're the best team of those 3, maybe you feel best about that opportunity because it's at home. You say, hey, the most likely, given what we know, is that you win that one because they're going to play it in College Park, and Maryland tends to be very good in College Park. So then you got to win one of the 2 road games. So the math would be, you don't win the night, like, you kind of have to go win at Michigan. Doesn't mean you can't. But how much do you trust a Maryland team on the road at Michigan, considering that this would have involved them just losing at Nebraska? None of it makes tonight a must-win. It's just it feels like this one's, you're going to win one, go win this one. This is what a good team figures out a way to beat a good but not great team on the road. Am I confident? No, not even a little bit. It's Maryland playing on the road. How could I be confident? Where would that come from? What would it be based in that I was confident about their ability to beat a competent team on the road? So it's kind of where we're at. All right, hour number 1 of today's show is in the books. Coming up in just a second, we're going to catch up with Keith Law from The Athletic. We are in the final days for the best of issue of Press Box. It is still available at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. You can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. It is the best of issue with Lamar Jackson, our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, on the cover. That said, tomorrow, Stan and I will announce what the next print issue of Press Box will be. It will be available next week. It will be baseball-themed. As we're into spring training and the start of the season, actually will happen while that issue is on newsstands. There will be a baseball theme to the next print issue of Press Box, which, again, will be available next week. So get this one before it's gone, and makes way for the new print issue of Press Box with that baseball theme, which will hit stands, including those neighborhood Royal Farm stores, and will be available as well at PressBoxOnline.com, like every issue of Press Box is. speaking of baseball, next guest recently at the Athletic, both ranked new top 100 prospects for 2025, and dove into each organization's top prospects. Cupboard not quite as full for the Baltimore Orioles as it's been in past years. That's the way it's supposed to work. Joining us now, he is our friend Keith Law. He's back with us here on GCR. Keith, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always good to chat with you. Thank you so much for taking the time for us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Keith, I say that, like, this is the way it's supposed to work. You go through down period, you get top picks, then you should have loaded prospects. Is it at all concerning how much maybe it's retreated a bit for the Orioles in terms of the organization, or is this about right to you? This was always going to be this way. They couldn't possibly sustain how high the organization was for a few years.
Oh, I think they could have sustained it a little bit longer, or they could have done a better job converting the assets that they did have in the system, the strength that they had in position player prospects, into more major league pitching. Right. Someone just asked in my Q&A yesterday, the Orioles are talking up this castle of pitchers they have in camp, Trevor Rogers and Brandon Young and so forth. Are any of those, a potential replacement for Corbin Burns? I said, no, they're number 5 starters and maybe a 4. Right. The trade for Corbin Burns was part of the plan. You trade your position player depth. In that case, it was just Joey Ortiz, but he's an everyday player for an ace. Corbin Burns is an ace or very close to him. So to me, you can look at the Orioles system now and say, well, they're down because they're not picking up the top anymore, and they have traded and graduated quite a few prospects. The flip side is they don't draft as well when they're drafting at the end of the first round. They've had a lot of either questionable picks or even just outright misses with some of their higher draft picks or higher bonus picks. And they haven't made enough trades to bolster their rotation because they don't draft pitching. They really just do not draft pitching. It's like some kind of anaphylactic allergy or something. They are just not doing it. And that's fine if you're going to turn around and trade to get it. But I look at that Orioles rotation and say, I don't know if that's enough to hang with the Yankees. And the Red Sox are better, at least, and they just got better yesterday. And, the Rays are the Rays, right? They're mosquitoes. They're always going to be there annoying you if you're competing in the AL East.
Completely agreed with everything that you just said, Keith. And I feel like the Rogers thing is the one that, I'm not trying to oversell Connor Norby. I'm not. I don't think Connor Norby was going to get you Dylan Cease, but it just seems like you got to a point where we kind of have to trade the guy because we're just not doing anything with him. And the best you were able to do was to come away with Trevor Rogers. And I feel like there's a lot of Orioles fans that are starting to wonder if Heston Kjerstad is the next guy whose value is just going to expire without you ever having prioritized him being a solution on your team or trying to use him when his value is at the highest. I know it's complicated by some of the things that he dealt with, but still, I think that he was at least somewhat of a regarded prospect.
Yes, I would expand that, too, to say Kjerstad, Ryan Mountcastle, and Ryan O'Hearn, who had a very good year last year, but I can't remember if you and I talked in the fall, but I was kind of surprised they picked up his option, not because I don't think he's worth it or a good player, but he's the last thing they need. This is the whole problem. All 3 of those guys are sort of facing a decline in their trade value, either because they sort of plateaued or because they're approaching free agency and there's not a lot of service time left. Mountcastle, to me, might be the weirdest one. It's like, why is he still here? He is basically just blocking Kobe Mayo. He's kind of blocking Heston Kjerstad to some extent. They have players who do the same thing and do it better, but there are certainly clubs out there that would look at Ryan Mountcastle and say, well, it's better than what we have at first base. Right. The Pirates just traded. I didn't love what they gave up, but still they traded 3 pitchers to get Spencer Horwitz. I think I'd rather have Ryan Mountcastle, all else being equal. And that's the kind of trade where I just, if you'd asked me in November, I'd say, well, I think, Mountcastle's probably gone by the time pitchers and catchers report. Well, here we are. And all 3 of those guys I mentioned are still in Baltimore. There's not enough playing time for them, and they still need, let's just say, an above-average starter, somebody who could pitch in the top 3 spots of a contending rotation. They need to go get a guy like that. And, if they've even tried, it certainly hasn't made it out into the press. I haven't seen any real reports of them being heavy on any of the possible trade candidates or any of the free agents who would have fit that role.
Boy, we could do an hour on this. Keith, that said, it still feels like hypothetically we've continued in this city to discuss both, the Castillo, the Mariners pitchers, and obviously now the Padres pitchers, and whether that's Dylan Cease or it's actually Michael King. With them adding in Pivetta, it would seem like that conversation doesn't go anywhere. Is there a fit for you one way or the other that, like, it as late as it is in the game, as crazy as it is that it hasn't happened yet, like, it still could happen to you with one of those teams to pull a deal off?
And both of those teams are still willing to trade, put it that way. You have to line up on the the effective price in players. And my understanding from talking to, I don't do a lot of trade rumor stuff. I talk to people as part of the prospect work, and the teams that are selling pitching feel like they're not getting anywhere close to reasonable offers in return. And I mean, it kind of makes sense in the case of the Orioles. And I would say this to be true, certainly from, say, the Astros, who follow a similar or have followed a similar philosophy. A lot of these teams that are just scared of pitching. Pitching is worth less because they all get hurt and we don't pitch them as much. And therefore, we're willing to pay less in terms of prospects or young big leaguers going back in the other direction. Now, I don't know exactly what offers have gone back and forth there. My understanding, maybe I should say my inference, is that it hasn't gone very far with the Orioles on any of those guys that you're talking about. Yet, of course, they would line up. They'd line up really well with the Mariners, like hilariously so.
Yeah, they desperately. They need something.
Yeah, they need to do something.
Yeah.
And I mean, well, I'm not trying to be like talk radio histrionics here.
Yeah.
This team, they made the playoffs the last 2 years. They are not far from being the best team on paper in the division, which would probably make them the best team on paper in the American League. This is a very good core that Mike Elias and company have built. So this is not meant to say they're doing a bad job or that the team isn't good. I'm saying your team is really good, make them great.
100%. Make them a team that can go take that next step. Keith Law is with us. We agree inherently. I guess this comes down to get back to the prospect conversation. If the Mariners and the Padres are saying it's Kobe Mayo or bust, would you then understand the Orioles saying then it's bust? We're not doing that.
See, I would do it because of where they are, and I like Kobe Mayo a ton. He's in my top 20 overall, and some of that is proximity, right? He could step into a major league role for somebody right now. There's a lot of value in a player being able to do that and still have the kind of upside that Mayo does. There's some risk with Mayo. We're not exactly sure where he's going to end up playing. His swing can get a bit long. I don't know that he's going to step in and be productive day one. And I can see the Orioles saying, well, we need to win. We can't give Kobe Mayo 500 at-bats this year because we're trying to win. But that is a reasonable position to take. But you can't do that and then at the same time say, well, we can't trade him. Like, you can't sort of clutch your pearls at the suggestion. Like, if you're trading him to get a difference maker, Cease, King, Castillo, I would call them difference makers. They would be in the top 3 spots in the Orioles rotation. They would be able to start a playoff game for the Orioles. So to me, if that's the ask, I'd say that's fine. We'll headline this with Mayo, but it's not a 4-player deal, right? This isn't the Garrett Crochet package.
Right.
We'll do that. And, 1 or 2 guys from much further down in the system, or guys, and I don't mean necessarily by level, but guys who are not, say, in the Orioles top 10, for example. You do something like that to say, we're giving you a major league ready top 20 overall prospect. That's close to enough. Pad it with some further away guys, but we are not giving you him and, Sammy Basayo would be a ridiculous ask, but you know what I mean? We're giving you him and another one of our top 5 prospects.
It's an interesting. It's tough because maybe there's some sticker shock here in Baltimore because of Corbin Burns, walking after a year. Like it feels like it's an awful lot to pay for an expiring contract. Without having I don't know anything about Dylan Cease's willingness. If the Orioles were willing to pay Corbin Burns a boatload of money, my thought would be, well, maybe see if Dylan Cease is willing to take a boatload of money.
Right.
Maybe just see, hey, we have all this money. Would you be willing to take it instead? But it's tough for me. But it's interesting to hear you say that even though it is an expiring contract, you would still do it just because you think the Orioles are that close, and mathematically it makes more sense to do this.
Right. You got to win. You need to win when you get the rare opportunity that you have as the Orioles, particularly playing in this hyper-competitive division, right? You need to seize the opportunity to win, no pun intended. And He is a difference maker. I mean, of the guys you mentioned, I'd say I'd want Cease or King before Castillo.
Sure.
Castillo's clearly
the third.
He is starting a decline.
Yep.
Right. I don't know that I want to be invested in Castillo for, I forget, he's 3 or 4 years left on that deal. With Cease, you could actually argue, well, pitching's terrifying, so let's just take the guy for a year, right? And then we'll go out the next year and go get the next guy and the next guy, right? The nice thing about Corbin Burnes is you didn't invest in the long term. If you're so afraid of doing a long-term deal with a pitcher, which I understand, they all break. Well, do lots of short-term deals. Go trade for a guy who's got 1 or 2 years left, and then your goal is, hey, we just got to keep you healthy until you leave in free agency. We'll take the draft pick and go get the next guy. And I think you've got a pretty good argument. You could do that with Cease, and again, that he would be a difference maker. And if he comes and he says, I'm not doing an extension, which I'm pretty sure he's heading to free agency.
I would imagine, yes.
Just given who his agent is and his history. I'm like, and he should, right? Every player should go to free agency if they can. That's fine. You trade Mayo straight up for Cease. Mayo +1 for Cease. And if Cease gets you deep into the playoffs, gets you to the World Series, and this team is perfectly capable of getting to the World Series, then no one is going to say, I wish we kept Kobe Mayo. Like, is anybody saying, I wish we kept Joey Ortiz? Joey Ortiz was a 2.5 WAR player, but you got a great year out of Corbin Burnes.
I agree. And certainly in the moment, there was no debating it. I do wonder, like, do you run out of talent to be able to keep doing this, right? Like, do you?
Well, yeah.
That's
back to your original question,
yeah.
right? They have not kept this going. And I made a comment yesterday. Somebody said, well, the Orioles are going to have, I think it's 3 picks in the top 35 or something. They have 3 very high picks this year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Does that restock the farm system? You know, when you take Vance Honeycutt with your first-round pick, that guy does not have a lot of immediate trade value. He has to come prove himself because they love to take, now with these later picks and even in later rounds, they're taking guys who have 1 or 2 really strong tools but a significant flaw, thinking we can help this guy, we can fix this guy, we're betting on upside that we can, help with the deficiencies. Those guys don't have the same kind of instant trade value that guys do who have performed particularly well in college, which was not the case with Honeycutt.
Yep. No, I totally understand exactly what you're saying. And I wasn't even down on them taking Honey because I get it, right? It's an upside play. I understand it. But yes, to the point, he doesn't become immediately valuable. Let's talk about the other 2 guys that are in your top 100. Obviously, you brought up Basayo a minute ago. He's damn near at the top of the list. How far away are they from you need to start clearing at bats for Samuel Basayo? Like, is that by Memorial Day that they need to have a plan for how many days he's catching, how many days he's DHing, that they have to have a plan in place for Samuel Basayo being in the lineup every day?
No, I think because he's very young, he hasn't played a full season at AAA, and he's a catcher, which is just that that is a whole full-time job on top of being a hitter. Moving up to AAA, learning to catch better quality stuff, learning to work with the challenge system that they have in AAA, which it's stupid that we have it there and not in the majors, but it's going to come to the majors at some point.
Yeah, it needs.
There's a lot to do. You can absolutely say. You would say to Basayo, you're going to spend most of this year in Norfolk.
Okay.
And the idea is you're probably going to debut this year if you're healthy and you produce, but it's 2026 where you're trying to figure out what's the plan for him and Rutschman. Is it a job share? Are they catcher and DH together? And there's a lot of ways that can go. And of course, you have to see if both guys are still healthy a year from now, or even 4 months from now. But I think Basayo, as talented as he is, they have no need to rush him, and I don't think he is banging the door down. Not to the extent that Mayo, probably there's no point to sending Mayo back to AAA. He's already done that.
The other, just real quick, is he? Are you still confident that Basayo is that quality of catcher? That scenario where maybe it's a timeshare in 2026. Is he that good of a catcher that you're prioritizing that, or is the priority just he's a bat? Figure it out. If he's a part-time, if he catches 40 games, 50 games, that's a win.
In the abstract, Adley Rutschman doesn't exist, plays for the Pirates or whatever.
Right.
Timmy Basayo is your catcher of the future.
Okay.
Basayo is not as good of a catcher as Rutschman. Rutschman's a tremendous catcher. Basayo can really throw. He is absolutely capable of catching. This isn't like, a random name, Alfredo Duno in the Red system, where he's 260 pounds at a minimum. That guy is not going to be a catcher. Basayo can catch. But the bat is also special enough that if he is what you just described, 40 games catching, 100-odd games at DH or first base, fine. That's going to play there too.
Okay. It's funny because in the two different, you have Enrique Bradfield in your top 100, which a lot of folks don't, and yet you acknowledge in the rankings, the system rankings, the fact that Enrique Bradfield didn't really take a step forward and prove that he could drive the ball. What is Enrique Bradfield? Like, if I know the speed is real, I know the defense is real, but is that enough for you to believe that he is still a center fielder of the future? You know, should they move on from Cedric Mullins as he becomes a free agent, or is that too bold still for someone that we still have questions about as far as his bat is concerned?
I do think they're going to want to move on from Mullins. I know Mullins is a fan favorite. It's been he was a great draft pick, to great career, player development story, to great career. Nothing against him, but just looking at the age, the skill set, where he's likely to go from here, he's probably a guy where they're going to decide to move on. And with Bradfield, if Bradfield never really takes a step forward, he's an everyday center fielder.
Okay.
Lowercase, right? He's going to save you so many runs on defense. He is going to get on base at a decent enough clip. The speed is a difference maker. He is, but it's just that there's not going to be star potential, right? He might hit 300 and slug 380. He is not going to, and even now, right, a lot of his extra base hits are going to be because he's so fast, right? He hits one to the gap and you look up and he's on third base. It's a little frustrating because they said when they drafted him, we know there are swing issues, we know we have work to do, and it hasn't happened. I saw him last year at a couple of stops, and I don't know if it's they haven't tried or if the kid isn't willing. There's a lot of possible explanations. All I know is this is the same guy he was as a junior at Vanderbilt, which is not the same guy he was as a freshman at Vanderbilt when the swing worked a lot better. And I thought I saw a chance for a star where it was never going to be huge power, but he was going to be able to just I just want better quality contact. I'm not talking about home runs, just a swing that works. It's going to hit line drives to the gaps that he'll turn into doubles and triples, and that he won't get beaten by, say, better velocity on the inner third because the swing is overcomplicated and you can't get to it on time.
And the last guy I wanted to bring up was just you seem like you're still somewhat bullish about Chase McDermott as at least being a major league starter.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think he was another one in that, the person who asked the question in my Q&A yesterday. I think there's enough stuff there to miss bats. He's obviously got to throw more strikes. But I do think he could be a fifth starter for, a good chunk of this year. Now, you mentioned Rogers earlier. Like, Rogers was really good a couple of years ago. Then he got hurt, and the stuff backed up. And the Orioles, at the time they acquired him, were saying, we think we see adjustments we can make there. Like, to me, if Rogers shows up, I want to see what Rogers looks like now in spring training. They had a whole offseason with him. Is he healthy? Is he back to the guy he was a couple of years ago? He's going to get priority over McDermott, over Brandon Young, over Povich, with several of these other guys, because he's a veteran and obviously because they gave up something to get him. But I think McDermott makes 10 to 15 starts for them over the course of this year and, has a chance to be, I don't know, a little below league average. I don't want to oversell it, but that's, if you're a little below league average, it's probably better than a fifth starter.
And on the flip side, it seems like you're really bullish about Nestor Herman.
I mean, that's really good stuff.
Yeah.
That was a heck of a job they did. Seattle University, who knew, right? Scooble, first guy I think I ever heard of coming out of there, and now Herman, he is just storming up the system. I worry a little bit, is it just he's got velocity, he's got movement, he's got the breaking ball. He just blew away younger hitters. Right? Yeah. I would like to see him have an extended stretch in the upper minors and see how it works. I don't know that somebody asked me, is he a number 2 starter? I'm not there yet. I'm not there. It's a slightly older college guy who blew away younger hitters who just couldn't handle the sheer quality of his stuff, the life, velocity, movement on his stuff. Let's see how that works in Double A. Does he start walking a ton of guys because they lay off some of those pitches that A-ball hitters would chase at? And then I'll be very willing to reassess. I figured even where I put him, there's plenty of room to move him up if he proves himself against a higher caliber hitter. But they don't have pitchers who look like that in the system. They have a lot of guys who look like Povich or who look like Brandon Young, who's got a pretty good four-seamer and doesn't really have a whole lot else to go with it. Like, Herman was the one that was like, oh, damn. I mean, just watching video a couple weeks ago, I see a lot of Orioles affiliates And I'm very used to just being like, another one of these. Like, did they just get him out of the fifth starter factory? You know, Herman is, and I didn't see him live last year. It's funny, nobody told me. Everyone talked up. I'm blanking on his name, but the kid who's reliever, starter, swingman from who they took out of Liberty, who was also on my list.
Oh yeah. Oh God, I know who you're talking about. Hang on.
He's got good stuff. He was like, I didn't think he was drafted. He might have been an undrafted free agent. Like, he's got really good stuff too. Like, those guys are way more interesting to me than I don't mean to pick on Brandon Young. He's going to pitch in the big leagues. It's a really good four-seamer that misses more bats than your typical four-seamer. They love that stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's great. You need an above-average breaking ball, and it's not there. Like Herman, the kid from Liberty, they have a couple Latin American guys bubbling under who we'll see what they do this year. But I'm more interested in those guys because they at least have you can create a path in your mind where they are top three starters in the big league rotation because they have multiple pitches that could end up as above average to plus.
I'm trying to remember who this guy. I know exactly who you're talking about, and I cannot.
He's on the list. Yeah, I just don't have it in front of me.
I know. I'm trying to go through it right now, and I'll come up with it, and when we let you go, I apologize.
No, I should know. I just it's funny. I just was thinking about who are we likely to talk about. I was kind of focusing on the guys we talked about.
What are we plugging for you, Keith?
So all of my prospect content, my pro prospect content is up. The top 100 is up. The farm system rankings. And then the top 20s for all the teams are now up on The Athletic, as well as I did a Q&A yesterday I took about 80 questions or so, just kind of across the board. Next up for me will be draft stuff. I'm heading out to college season starts tomorrow. I'm heading out to see some guys. So you'll start seeing a shift. It'll be much more draft focused for the next couple of weeks as I have a little idea of what's going on in the class. But to me, I always feel a lot better about what a draft class looks like when I get out for the first time and start talking to some scouts in person and be like, all right, who do I really need to go see? I know the hype. Everyone talks about Jackson Holliday's brother. All right, let's talk about the real guys.
I appreciate that. At Keith Law is where you find him. Dude, you're always great with us. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning. Let's talk again real soon, all right?
My pleasure.
It's Keith Law with us from The Athletic here on GCR. It's very interesting. Like, would trade Kobe Mayo for Dylan Cease or Michael King? Whew.
Trying to figure out if
it's tough for me because my first inclination is that, like, no, of course you don't trade Kobe Mayo for someone with an expiring contract. But I understand his point.
If Mountcastle's here and
like you have too much of this. You do. You have too much of this. Someone's argument is eternally, you can make another Kobe Mayo. He's obviously not a third baseman. You can make another power-hitting, positionless player. The upside on that guy, what is the likelihood? The best case scenario is that guy becomes Jim Thome, right? Now, Jim Thome, you say that name out loud, you're like, okay, well, you'd be insane to have traded away Jim Thome, but that's the highest end. I get what he's saying. You don't really have room for Kobe Mayo unless you force it. If you force it, you have room. But as of this moment, Ryan Mountcastle will primarily be your first baseman, and it would require you got Tyler O'Neill. You can't put that away. You went out and spent. That was the one area we did spend to go get somebody was Tyler O'Neill. So could Kobe Mayo platoon? In your mind, is Kobe Mayo just a platoon bat? Is he only facing lefties?
Like this season?
Yeah. Which seems
probably.
And I think that's his point.
Right.
If that's all Kobe Mayo is just a platoon bat, what are you doing here?
Feels like it could be a waste of a year of his development.
And then if you move him into being an everyday guy a year after that, is he ready to be that guy? Or then 2 years from now, are you disappointed because he only really hits lefties? Are you talking about, like, he doesn't really become that guy until 2027? I understand what he's saying. It feels crazy to trade Kobe Mayo, this guy whose name we have talked about from the moment he was drafted. The guy that you save money specifically to go get. He has been under the microscope since that point. It seems nuts to move him for someone that would be here for a year. And to the point, like, pitching's volatile. What if that guy were to what if Dylan Cease, you acquire Dylan Cease. Well, now you got Dylan Cease. One of the arguments about Corbin Burns is, well, the guy doesn't get hurt. But what if Dylan Cease gets hurt? And now you must move Kobe Mayo for a guy that doesn't even pitch for you and then walks on top of it. Holy hell. I don't think I could do it. But the Padres hold the card. They are the ones that have all the pitching. You don't. So if they say, you don't understand, we'll talk to you, but the conversation is Kobe Mayo or it's dead. I don't know why the Padres would be terribly interested in Ryan Mountcastle. Like, that only really kind of made sense for the Mariners because, like, it's just so bleak that anything seems like an upgrade. But I also get why they might say, yeah, but again, it's like I always say, we have a Ryan Mountcastle. Everybody's got a Ryan Mountcastle. It was the thing when we all wanted to, get a lot from a Trey Mancini trade. It's like every organization is just saying we've got a Trey Mancini, and if we don't, there's one. The Pirates are thinking that Spencer Horwitz, and I get it, it's a bummer. The guy that we like, he's a local kid, but banged up right now. They're thinking that Spencer Horwitz can be their Ryan Mountcastle. He's got pop. We could turn him into a quality power hitting.
He's gonna get at bat, so yeah.
Right, like that's what they're thinking. And most teams think that way. We can find a positionless bat. We don't have to prioritize yours. So I don't know. I still
for what it's worth, Cease has not gone on the injured list since April 2021.
No,
he's just not a 200 inning guy, but
right.
Yeah.
Well,
but he's the last 4 seasons. He's
what were his innings the last couple of years?
2021, 165. Mm-hmm. That was so he missed the first couple weeks of April. 184 in 2022, 177 in 23, and 189 a career high last.
So that's
year.
not it. That doesn't. It doesn't sound like it would be crazy for him to approach 200 this year.
Did Corbin Burns even hit, or he went like 190? Something?
Yeah, something like that. Well, and again, if they had made a postseason run, that's part of what like the math is too. Is that you're thinking about that as the season goes on. If we're going to get into the postseason, we got to make sure these guys still have innings for us at that point. And so
Burns, I guess, if you include the one playoff game, he did surpass 200. He went 194.
And it was because he went 7 right in the playoff game.
It felt like more.
Yeah. That sounds like Dylan Cease is a pretty bold. First of all, I don't know that the Padres want to trade Dylan. Like this all kind of started like hypothetically at the owners' meetings. Like maybe the Padres are thinking about Dylan Cease is on an expiring contract. Then it felt like there was way more bluster about King. It felt like, okay, yeah, but we're not actually doing Cease. Like, don't get us wrong. We would like to trade a pitcher, but King, not Cease. And maybe it's either one.
And you would think
and
you would have to give up a Mayo. Do you think you'd have to give up a Mayo for King?
It's funny because the way that Keith said it, he's like, I do it for King too. It was Castillo was the one that he was like, yeah, not Castillo. I'm not doing that.
And obviously, so King was just converted to a starter last year.
And
he went 173 innings. And that was his first season.
Wow. What was his high before that?
He made 9 starts in 2023 with the Yankees. And got up to 100 innings because he also worked quite a bit out of the bullpen.
That's kind of crazy that he went from 100 to 173, isn't it?
Yeah.
And seemed to hold up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he finished 7th in Cy Young voting.
That's really weird. I don't know. I'm not telling you that I'm comfortable with it, but it's interesting. It's really interesting that Keith wasn't dismissive of the idea of doing Kobe Mayo for Cease or King. Boy. Cease, I'm sort of at like I could let Keith Law talk me into like Cease. I'm not sure I could let him talk me into King. I'm not sure I can do that.
King was,
but I get it. Like
he broke his elbow in 2022, and then it's right elbow fracture.
God.
But he was healthy for all of 23, healthy for all of 24.
I don't know, man.
And he is
just even having an elbow is something that concerns me.
He's 29. He'll be
you tell me about a pitcher. I'm like, do they have an elbow?
He'll be 30 in May.
You're like, well, yes, they obviously have an elbow. That's everybody does. Nope, can't do it.
Cease will be 29 all of this season.
Oh God.
But yeah, if Michael King is Michael King, I mean,
God,
if he's 2024 Michael King, it's.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
200 strikeouts last year.
And it's funny the way he talks too, because it's like, is it better that you don't sign these guys? Because I get it, like that's you're terrified of signing pitchers. Well,
sometimes, I mean,
this is the way it works. In a perfect world, you sign every pitcher for 4 years, right? Like you're not on the hooks for 7 years, but you can't do that, or you end up in the situation where you just don't have anybody. So. No, I don't think it's a better thing to not to you can't just keep doing this. Like it would be very difficult for me to if you were trading away Kobe Mayo and you had an inclination that Dylan Cease was willing to talk, that was more inclined to consider signing than Corbin Burns was. Let's have a conversation. Because if you're telling me that you're trading Kobe Mayo and signing Dylan Cease, then our opinion changes dramatically. In that moment, we say absolutely, 1,000% worth doing. The only difference is the idea of trading Kobe Mayo for Dylan Cease, who's only here for 1 year. And then it adds into, and do you really believe? Because a year ago, part of that was we genuinely believed that Corbin Burns could be the final piece in the Orioles winning a World Series. And we shouldn't be as down now as we are. Like it shouldn't be that 1 year. Like we should be saying that's one more year of development and a chance for them to be even closer. But there was so much regression last year that we don't feel that coming into this year. We don't have the feeling of the Orioles are one starting pitcher away from winning a World Series. Because then we look at this lineup and we say, do we really believe that this lineup is good enough to win a World Series? And if Adley Rutschman looks more like superstar Adley Rutschman, if Gunnar Henderson doesn't have those couple of months, it's crazy to me that Gunnar Henderson had as good of a season as he did with 2 months where he just wasn't productive at all. August was a disaster, and what was the other? Was it May or June? One of the other 2 months last year, he was.
I forget which one.
He wasn't really productive. If Jackson Holliday becomes the guy we thought he was going to be. If Colton Cowser can find the guy from the first month of the season last year, you can start doing that and then
or even just be consistent, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you found the guy from the first month of the season, he'd be the greatest baseball player of all time. But yes, I'd settle for.
Yeah, May and August were bad for Gunnar.
It was May and August that were really
bad. Still somehow OPS 888 in May, but he hit 220 in May, but his OPS.
Because he was walking a lot. We talked about that. I do remember having that conversation. He was still walking a ton.
August,
right?
He was a 700 OPS.
Yeah, August was rough. But then he bounced back. He did have a nice September.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember us feeling like, oh my, what is happening here? Because for a little while it was Adley and Gunnar, and you're just like, dude, what are we living in the Twilight Zone?
It was Ramon Arias. It was the Ramon Arias show.
It was
in
the
August.
Ramon Arias show. That's a great point. All right, when we come back in, I guess it's back. It's Thursday, and football season's over, so find out what stupid thing is happening in the world of fighting sports.
Oh, nice.
This is
All
what
right.
we've got when we come back in. The return of Fighting Words here on GCR.
You're gonna love February at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Sweeten your Valentine's Day with a chocolate bar February 13th and 14th. Pamper yourself and your partner with Valentine's Day spa discounts February 10th through 21st. Celebrate the Year of the Snake and win a Lunar New Year luxury brand collection February 28th. Plus more ways to play, dine, and win all month. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from driveeasymd.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at driveeasymd.com.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at costasinn.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland. But don't worry, protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR. We're about to get into fighting words, which, for those of you that aren't familiar, who was the intern that introduced us to us?
You don't forget Charles?
Oh, it was King Charles, right? Yeah. Was that, or what do we call Prince Charles? What do we call him? What do we call Charles? I like Charles. I did a football game with Charles last year, actually.
Yeah, I think it was Prince Charles.
Was it Prince Charles? Charles Greer, who had played football at Stevenson, came back. We needed a color analyst for a game. I was like, hey, I know a guy, and he actually was really good. But he did he work at ground control? Didn't he?
Yes, yeah. I think he still might be.
I think he might.
There.
Yeah, I think he might still be. And he asked if that could be the segment that he brought to the show, and then Griffin got jealous. Is really what happened. Like, he brought a segment to the show, and Griffin got jealous because he was like, I like fighting. I like. Now both of them had the same problem, which is that they just wanted to do UFC. Like, they just wanted it to. That's what they were into. I was like, hey, we got to be more complete than that. Like, we got to do a little bit more.
Like, we have to do WWE.
No, I never said that. That was never important to me. Boxing was the part that I thought was important to include. And then I realized that
boxing's also,
most of this doesn't matter. Like, most of this, it's almost like the entire
probably a fair.
But that was the way that it went, and we're in that time of year where we're going to be doing stuff like this. Of course, we do our favorite segments, NBA Corner and Rubbins Racing. I hate.
Welcome to the off season, folks.
I hate how much feedback I got about Drew yesterday. I hate it.
How much? Oh, there's a lot of bad feedback.
No,
said never really again.
No,
can't come back.
I hate that. Like, and I know. Hi, Glenn Clark. Look.
You're enabling him.
I am, in part because there can be entertainment value to it, but part of the entertainment value is supposed to be how much we roll our eyes at all of it. Like, that's what makes it entertaining. Is, oh God. I hate that the Kobe Bryant joke worked yesterday. I hate it because I wanted to be mad, because I wanted to be, no, you can't make that joke. But the reason why the joke worked is because the joke is on me for setting him up the way that I did. It's not really that he's not laughing at Kobe Bryant for being dead. I promise you that's not, the joke is, you thought you were going to get me. You thought you were so smart, and you were going to nail me on this. We could live for another 100 years, and he wouldn't know that Anthony Davis is out of the All-Star game and Kyrie Irving had to replace him. You thought you were going to get me, and I quick-witted got you. You got in the process. And that's what makes it work. And immediately I was devastated. Devastated. Because I knew it worked. I knew it did. And I couldn't be mad at him, and I couldn't do the thing that we have to do sometimes when Drew says something very off color and be like, oh, God, there are weird uncles here again. Like, I had to just say, damn it, you got me. You got me. And I knew that it worked, and I got way too much feedback from people that acknowledged that it worked. I hate that. I hate it so much. Because then it justifies the people that are like, dude, I can't lie to you. I still love it when you and Drew are together. I'm like, son of a bitch. But we're bringing back, those are our favorite segments, of course, NBA Corner and Rubbin's Racing with Drew Forrester.
And I'm hoping to, get up in that.
I don't know. That's a high standard that we've set with those segments. On Friday, you're going to do This Week in the Rest of Baseball?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess we might as well.
There's not really.
Sure, we can do This Week in the Rest of Baseball tomorrow.
These are the segments
Twitch
that we
Row
bring
B.
back. Once the season starts, we'll bring back 3 Up and 3 Down on Mondays to go over the week of Orioles baseball, and we still
we could have watched the games. We do it for spring training, but
no, I still wouldn't. I still would not. I'm not going to do that. But here we go. It's back. Here is Fighting Words.
It's Fighting Words with Griffin Bass.
Pretty sure I thought that we could do this better for a long time. I'm pretty sure I felt that way. Fighting Words is brought to you by the CIAA Tournament.
CIAA Tournament is coming back to Baltimore as Baltimore welcomes the excitement of the Food Lion CIAA Men's and Women's Basketball Tournament to CFG Bank Arena February 25th. Excuse me, I'm doing a read here. February 25th.
It's a long story. Go ahead.
February 25th through March 1st. Get your tickets now, Ticketmaster.com. If you're to get tickets to the Food Lion CIAA Men's and Women's Basketball
Excuse me, you're doing a read here.
At CFG Bank Arena February 25th through March 1st.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Where do we want to start? Man, the world of fighting is certainly something right now.
Is it?
UFC did have a big pay-per-view this past weekend down in Sydney, Australia. Dracus du Plessis came away and defended his middleweight title. He beat Sean Strickland in unanimous decision. Sean Strickland didn't look too good. Dracus du Plessis,
he's a really likable guy, though. We got that going.
Yeah, Sean Strickland,
super likable fella.
I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with Sean Strickland. He probably won't get. I mean, I don't know. I guess a couple of years ago he said he was never going to get a title shot, and somehow he beat Izzy once he did get that shot. But he's just so inconsistent. Like at times he looks like obviously he can be one of the maybe top 5 pound-for-pound guys in the world, and then other times it looks like he's sleepwalking for 25 minutes, and that's what Saturday night kind of felt like with Sean Strickland. So Dracus du Plessis, the South African, won or defended his middleweight title, and now everyone's looking to probably Khamzat Chimaev is the next will be next up. Finally, I mean, again, Chimaev has always had issues of making weight. It doesn't even want to fight. He finished. I think he subbed Rob Whittaker last fall. In his most recent fight, so it seems like he is taking things seriously again, and that would be a good next up for Dracus du Plessis. Zhang Wei Li did in fact win. Again, I didn't understand the line at all going into Saturday night. She made pretty easy work of Tatiana Suarez, a very dominant decision over Tatiana Suarez, and now at strawweight, it doesn't seem like there's really much else for Zhang Wei Li to do. So now the rumors are that maybe she'll try to jump up to 125, fight Valentina Shevchenko, and in a kind of super fight, somewhat, so to speak, for one of the greatest women's UFC fighters, one of the greatest women's MMA fighters of all time, Zhang Wei Li versus Valentina Shevchenko. Again, those are just rumors. Not really sure what to do next at 115 strawweight women and flyweight as well for the women. So those are the kind of 2 big takeaways from the UFC past week.
I don't know that those are the big takeaways in the UFC in the past week, but the ones as far as the fights are concerned,
as far as
I guess they could be the big takeaways.
Yeah,
always a good time in your promotion when the biggest story is one of your fighters a Nazi.
Well, he's got brain damage, and that guy's an idiot. I mean, do we need to address? I guess
It feels like it was the biggest story of the week.
That was like 2 weeks ago, I think. Bryce Mitchell.
Oh, no, it was still going on last week.
I mean, yeah, I tried to block it out.
I
and
appreciate
muted it as
your
much as I could.
Yeah.
Bryce Mitchell went on some stupid podcast and said he wanted to have lunch with Hitler or something, and
but
gave his
he
reasons.
made it clear afterwards he wasn't. But I'm definitely not a Nazi. Definitely not. Don't know why you guys would think that based on the words that came out of my mouth.
A lot of people in the past week.
Definitely not a Nazi. Yeah, it's a hell of a time in our world where a lot of people have to answer a question as to whether or not they're an actual Nazi.
I guess just spanning the rest of the UFC news.
Oh, and then a super good guy, super face Dana White. After he got to the bottom of the real problem facing is that those jackasses in the media in Australia. I believe he used a very direct term to describe them that I'll choose not to.
Yeah, just fighting the people, or calling out the people that are allowing you into their country to put on your promotion, and UFC is continuing to move towards being taken too seriously.
It's a sideshow. It started for me with the real stuff. Like I didn't let the other stuff be what ruined UFC for me. I tried to be the guy that hey, man, I don't really care who you are, what you do, anything along those lines. Like, I can accept entertainment for entertainment's sake, like all that stuff. And so as everybody knows, my divorce from the UFC was related to the fighting problems that existed. But I don't know how anyone, and again, unless you're just if you're one of these people, I get it. Like, if that's just who you are, like, dude, I don't care. F the world. Everybody sucks. You're all like if you're that person, I can certainly understand why you're still wrapped up in UFC.
So one of the things that happened earlier this week, Top Rank split with ESPN.
Did see that?
Yeah. They had been together
There's
for 8 years.
a lot of talk about the UFC splitting from ESPN.
Yeah, and so I think once that happened, then I could have probably officially get out of just because the UFC is so ugly. Like it's
But where would they go?
I don't know.
That's the other thing.
I don't know. Like I know before Fight Pass, then everything will be on Fight Pass. I guess
they just take it all in house.
Yeah, but
I
don't know why
they could go to a streamer like WWE did.
They could go to Bellator was on Max for a little bit.
Well, it would actually make a lot of sense given that they're now they and WWE are partners for if them to try to go back to Netflix and say, hey, look at how this has worked out. Could we try to work something out as well?
I mean, and that's why I still enjoy the fights, for the most part, and it is very accessible when it's on ESPN.
But how much of it is you still have to pay for the pay-per-views?
Yeah, you do have to pay for the.
And a lot of people complain about I don't know if you've had a lot of people on social complain about
sometimes
there are issues with you buy the pay-per-view through ESPN.
Oh,
and then,
yeah. Well, I know some people my friend that normally does buy it because he's got Hulu with TV and he always has to buy it through. He bought it on Hulu one time and then couldn't watch it on any other TV. But now if he buys it through the ESPN app or something, then it automatically populates up. But
I just know there have been a lot of
complicated
complaints about the UFC, ESPN
more
for
often
the pay-per-views.
More often than not, I find myself trying to get around that in some way.
Oh, good.
But
good.
Unless well, I guess we'll just leave it at that.
Man, I'm not trying to. This is how I'm bringing back fighting words. By the way, is to be like, this all sucks.
There's a card this weekend. Gregory Rodriguez is fighting Jared Cannonier in a middleweight main event. Calvin Kattar is fighting. I love Calvin Kattar. Unfortunately, he's a big underdog. He's going against Youssef Zalal from Morocco, who is in his second UFC stint and actually seems pretty legit. So I hope Calvin Kattar can pull off a big upset, but he is plus 375 right now, so the odds are not in his favor. Dylan Butka is fighting this weekend.
So that's our guy.
Yeah, he is a big underdog as well.
He's had a tough run, hasn't he?
He has had a tough run as well.
Yeah.
He's fighting Edmund Shabazian also at middleweight this weekend.
Go get him.
Yeah,
hopefully
he can.
I'm rooting for him, but
odds not in his favor. The Bonfim brothers, Ishmael and Gabriel Bonfim from Brazil. They're two very exciting guys. I enjoy watching both of them thoroughly. They're both fighting this weekend, as is Angela Hill, also in action this weekend with the UFC.
And this one's on
ESPN Plus. It's just an Apex card. But
you
it
love
is
those.
Some good. Nope, I hate those.
Those are your
but it is. They'll be in Seattle next weekend. Putting on Dom Cruz officially announced his retirement. He was supposed to headline the Seattle fight night next week.
Not great.
He broke his wrist during training and decided, I guess he was probably going to be playing, retire after the fight regardless. But so he decided he's going to officially retire. Yeah, so Dominic Cruz, his UFC career is over, soon to be UFC Hall of Famer. Let's see. The GFL, have you been seeing anything going on with the Global Fight League?
I don't know that I've ever heard of it.
So the GFL is they're taking all the washed UFC, Bellator, all these washed fighters, all these old guys, and they are doing like a draft. They like drafted them, and they have like Luke Rockhold's in it, Tony Ferguson, who hasn't won a fight in like 5 years now. Is in it among plenty others, but they're trying to do a fight league. They have not made any announcements for when the cards are, but they have like Team Dubai, Team like LA or something, and like Team New York, and they have these fighters.
It's one of the problems. We can get into this with the Top Rank thing. Like one of the biggest problems facing combat sports right now is like when you say Team Dubai, I immediately just combat sports are kind of owned by Saudi Arabia at the moment,
right?
Like the biggest story in combat sports this week, I'm sure you're getting to it, is the Canelo Alvarez Terrence Crawford. But it's going to Saudi Arabia. And I'm not saying that like people in this country won't watch fights in Saudi Arabia, but we're less inclined. It's not part of the experience of, hey, it's a big fight, is someone might be traveling to Vegas, like might be so excited by it that they'll travel to Vegas to go watch it. And it'll air at a time that you get all your buddies together on a Saturday night with nothing else to do, and let's hang out and watch the fight. Like that's part of the experience. And it's good business for the fighters, obviously, if they all want to take the money. Like, they're all getting plenty of money. And to say, is it a bad thing that we're getting a Canelo Alvarez-Terrence Crawford fight? No. But also kind of a couple years past when we would have wanted a Canelo Alvarez-Terrence Crawford fight.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's the way boxing works. Like, you can get it at the moment where we have to. Like, at the moment where it's the very end of trying to genuinely believe that it's relevant, we'll give you the fight. It's not a bad thing that the fight is happening, but is it going to happen at...
It's probably going to happen. Yeah, it's going to like the
1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Most likely. Maybe it'll be closer to 5, depending on whenever, like when walkouts.
What is the time? What is the time difference?
It's got to be like 8.
You would think. That's why I was like, can it be at 5 o'clock? Like, can they do it at 1 in the morning, like local time? I don't know enough about.
Well, I mean, like, whenever they fight in, like, whenever there's a fight in New York, like, it still starts at 10 p.m. Local time. So the walkouts are around midnight.
Midnight, yeah. That's why I would say maybe it could be 4 in the afternoon, like something like. I don't know. You can tell me more.
But I mean, yeah, to your point, like, yeah, that's why some of these most recent, Tyson Fury fights have lost, a little bit of their shine because they're happening at 5 o'clock.
He also kind of seems to not give a rat's ass.
That too. It is. Got to try and do math here. 9 hours ahead. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, like they will fight. It'll be earlier on. Like it'll
be at 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And like you can make an argument for. You can take that over not getting it. Like, it's either that or you're not getting a fight. But a lot of people would say, I'd just rather watch a Terrence Crawford fight on a Saturday night against whoever than the mega fight on a Saturday after. I'm not planning my day around Terrence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez at 3 in the afternoon. I'm just not doing that. And what's the solution for it? I don't know that there is. But this sport was already damaged heinously for years, to the point where like some people were like maybe the Saudi money will save boxing, but it's the exact opposite, which is that like it's going to kill whatever semi-interest there still was. I don't want to oversell the ESPN thing because like you weren't getting pay-per-view level fights on
through Top Rank. Yeah,
correct. That wasn't happening, but you were at least getting boxing of some sort that maybe on a Saturday night when there's nothing else going on. When the NBA playoffs end, there's a real dip on Saturday nights. Between the end of the NBA playoffs and the first weekend of college football season, there's just nothing on Saturday nights, short of like the Olympics going on or the World Cup, something like that, Saturday nights become empty between the end of the NBA playoffs and the start of college football. And so on one of those, like you threw a top-ranked card on, at least maybe you could get people to watch boxing, whatever it was, and maybe generate boxing fans. And it can work the same way for the relationship. That would be that time of year was when like the UFC might put a more loaded fight night card on ESPN. To try to use the opportunity to. Nothing else is going on right now. Let's see if we can't find someone who's just looking for an event and bring them in and turn them into a fan.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of why I fell in love with the UFC because it was always on Saturdays, and especially that over COVID is when I really started getting into it, and because there was literally nothing on, and UFC was still doing stuff, and that's why I can't quit it just yet. But yeah, I mean, like it's the future is very unclear.
I would rather
for
Canelo Alvarez face
combat sport.
Terrence Crawford than face Jake Paul. I do want to make that abundantly clear. It's definitely better that it's Terrence Crawford than it's Jake Paul. But the crazy part is, in America, for two different reasons. One, because we're lost.
And the fight, I mean, nothing is official yet with this because it's not going to happen until September, I believe.
But the Terrence Crawford fight?
Yeah. If that's...
Well, then you're absolutely... You're going to do it in football season? No one's going to watch. Like, no one.
Right.
You're going to put that on up against SEC football in this country? Stop. Like, no one will care in this country. That no one will.
The latest report was that they're still trying to fight in Vegas. It looks like, but again, it would be in September.
Just be a Saudi promoted Vegas fight. Is that what it would be? Crawford. Well, it's got it. Canelo's done a deal with Riyadh season. He can't fight unless it's.
I guess so. I mean, because
they've done that.
Yeah, they've done Riyadh.
They've done Riyadh season branded Vegas, and if that's what it is, that's better. Like at least it. I mean, that wasn't the
revealed a four-fight deal between Canelo and Riyadh season. Share the first fight. Okay, they will do a fight in Riyadh in May, but they haven't announced who that could be.
So the Crawford fight,
if he fights Crawford, to be in Vegas in September.
I mean, September is the wrong time.
Yeah,
like it just is. It's the wrong time, but
it's most likely going to be. So there is a fight tomorrow night. There's a boxing card on ESPN tomorrow night. Keyshawn Davis versus Denise Baranchek. So maybe it happens to be the winner of that one is just who Canelo ends up fighting because he should be able to beat them. and that'll be in whatever day in May, and that'll be in Riyadh. But yes,
apparently even the Riyadh fight for Canelo, they're going to try to do in the AM. On Sunday morning in Saudi Arabia.
That would be
so that it that's a wild if you're doing
every time the UFC at least is going. I mean every time even Tyson Fury's been in Saudi Arabia. Like they have fought local time to appeal their fans. Like and you've seen it in the UFC when they put on cards at 5 a.m. in London, and it's because they want to focus on the timing here and so that would. I don't know if they've done that before in Riyadh.
I don't think they have done it, but they definitely haven't done it with WWE in Riyadh for sure, or wherever in Saudi Arabia because they've gone with Jeddah. They've gone there too. That would be better. There's no doubt about that. It would be better for them to do it at a time where it makes it more palatable for U.S. fans to watch and would help this a little bit. But still, there is a part of it of having the Vegas fight night thing and having there be pop culture. That surrounds the Vegas fight
Max
night.
Crosby's there.
That stuff does matter, and it's hard to quantify that, but it's part of what makes, you do want to see that stuff. You want to hear about the guy that plays for your team that's out at the fight and going to parties and all that sort of stuff. I'm not trying to say that it outweighs the other stuff, but it still hurts. It hurts.
Joe Burrow's there, like that.
Stuff like that. And maybe that's the next step for the Saudi government is to try to start flying in more mega celebrities to watch these fights to make it look more. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I mean, I guess they have the money to do that. So
they've got all the money.
Organization that is killing it.
Hey, why would we ever want to have electric cars grow and fight anyway? It's a
WWE's doing pretty well though. Jey Uso won WrestleMania.
I never said that WWE had to be a part of Fighting Words. I don't know where that came from.
I thought we did. I thought we brought it up one time.
Once upon a time when I did.
What's the elimination?
Fighting Words was a show that I did on
back in
AM
Zona.
AM 1060 The Fan, and that was part of it.
Full 4 hours.
No, it was not 4 hours. It was 1 hour. But we did I think we did a UFC segment, boxing segment. It was 3 segments. And I think we did UFC, boxing, and WWE in 3 segments. But WWE's not a combat sport.
No, did I say WrestleMania? I meant Royal Rumble. That's what I meant.
Yes, Royal Rumble. They're excited about that. But unfortunately, they're making him face Gunther instead of face Cody Rhodes, which is what it should be. It should be the main.
Well, they still got time, right?
No. They're committing to it being Gunther.
WrestleMania's not until what? May? April?
Yes, but they've said he's facing Gunther.
I bet something happens.
No. This was always the most likely scenario, was that they're going to do this. So they can have John Cena face Cody Rhodes in the actual main event of WrestleMania.
So why do they lie to Jey Uso and tell him or why do they lie to the Royal Rumble winner?
Well, he's still facing a world champ. There's 2 world champions. That's how it works.
2 main events
on
WrestleMania?
Raw, because they do 2 nights.
Yeah, okay.
The Saturday night main event will be Jey Uso and Gunther.
We're taking the show to Indy this year?
No, I don't think. The WrestleMania is not in Indy.
Where's WrestleMania?
It's in Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it might as well. Yeah.
I mean, I got somebody that would host us. It'll be very. Unfortunately, it's on Easter, of all the things.
Doesn't bother me.
WrestleMania is. I know it doesn't matter to you, but my house hosts Easter for my family. It's the one family event that
Take
we
the whole
host.
family out to Vegas.
Yeah, correct. It's funny. My buddy Aaron suggested the exact same thing.
Aaron knows.
Yeah, when he said it, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll go. Like, yeah, I could do that because I keep feeling terrible that I haven't gone out to see him since he moved there. And just various things have come up that have prevented that from happening. But I was like, yeah, maybe I'd think about going to WrestleMania. Like, I could do that, I guess. I got somewhere to stay, like, the whole thing. And then he was like, well, the only thing is it's Easter weekend. I'm like, mother. We host 2 things at our house all year long. We host Easter for the family, and then we host a party in the summer. The party in the summer, we can move. Whatever works for us. The fact that we haven't set a date yet probably says it's going to have to be late in the summer because we ain't ready. But those are the 2 things that we have. One of them is Easter. There's nothing I can do about that. Imagine telling my wife, hey, baby, my whole family's going to come over. The funny thing is I'm not going to be there. Enjoy. Have a great time.
She loves the family, right?
She does.
Yeah.
But that ain't going to work. Just not going to work. So, no, we will not be doing the show from Vegas for WrestleMania. But I do love Jey Uso. He's the best. And Ricky Starks is in NXT now. We're very excited about that.
Of course.
Absolute Ricky Starks. He's a rock star.
Turkey a la Sheik. Yeah, Turkey a la Sheik did
Yes.
say that apparently Canelo is going to fight William School.
That
on
person.
May 3rd.
And
on
the
May 3rd
point of that is they just
Riyadh.
want Canelo fighting on Cinco de Mayo weekend, right?
Yeah.
That's always traditionally been. It's the same day as the Kentucky Derby.
Right.
Traditionally, it's always been, horse race, big fight. They have tried to make it a Mexican fighter involved when they can, but it's really just want to have a big fight.
It's the Canelo Open.
Yeah. For the last few years, it has been. And that's been the problem is that none of the fights have been. It's just like, oh, right, Canelo. That's it. There's been no, marquee opponent.
Mayweather Pacquiao aren't fighting on.
Yeah, but that's when they did fight.
Right.
They always fought on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Like, that was always the big one. So it's just Canelo versus Tomato Can.
Glenn Clark, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Essentially on Cinco de Mayo weekend. All right, I'm not sure how encouraging that segment was to anybody about the future of fighting words.
Alex Pereira is fighting Magomed Ankalaev. That'll be a pay-per-view next month.
Okay.
So we got to have that to look forward to.
Sure.
In the UFC.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Oh, I've seen lots of bluster about Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Lots of bluster about that the last couple of weeks.
Well, not going to put any. I know he called out Lionel Messi earlier.
Sure, why not?
So.
Why not? Let's just do anything. Did I
Maybe
see
that was Logan that did that.
Did I see that Barstool managed to get Pat Mahomes and John Rocker?
That's what.
Is that?
Yeah, I guess I should have led with that.
Is that real?
I don't know. What's his face?
I know that Dave Portnoy was putting
put a video out. It's official.
But is that real?
I'm not gonna believe it until I don't know. I mean, they do dumb
I know
S
they do
on
plenty
Rough
of
and
stupid
Rowdy
things.
all
Yeah,
the time.
I've
So
never watched.
Maybe
but
they will.
I know they do plenty of insane things.
I'm sure John Rocker before it.
Oh my! What the hell else is John Rocker? This is the most relevant John Rocker's been
since Survivor or since like.
Oh, I forgot that he did Survivor.
I guess before Survivor.
You're a Survivor guy. You love that.
Survivor legend John Rocker.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's
long story history of
this is part of the problem is that he's such a giant piece of crap that I don't even want to like give this any credence. I don't even want him to get attention, even if he got his ass kicked, and I'm not really sure how confident that I would be that he would. Yeah, I wouldn't even want that. Yeah, because I don't want him getting attention.
I mean, I'm sure they're both gonna be wearing headgear.
He's one of the most garbage humans that's ever lived, John Rocker. I remember we had to put him on a show once.
Oh, really?
Oh God, it's very uncomfortable. What was he doing? It had to be. It was after he had
said stuff.
Maybe he was like coming back with the Long Island Ducks or something like that. And I was very early in my career, and they were like, "Oh yeah, John Rocker's coming on today," and I was like,
"Yes,
what?
What a get!"
And this is at the time where like, again, I was so young. I was where a lot of people your age are. Were like, there is no good, there is no bad, there's only famous, right? Like that's all that matters. And so there was part of it that was like, "Oh yeah, John, that'll get a lot of attention." And then I had to like sit down. This is back when I used to, like prep. I had to sit down and think about what we were going to talk about with John Rocker. And then I was like, I don't really want to talk to John Rocker. He's really just a garbage human. Like, I really have no interest in doing this. So I had to. It was Ed and we had to figure out. And I don't remember. I don't remember how it went. But I just remember how uncomfortable I was. At first, I was like, oh yeah, he's famous. That'll be great for us. And then I was like, oh no, I don't want to do this. This guy sucks. This guy sucks. We come back in. We'll get a tidbit. We'll get two-bit or wind down for a Thursday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our very special Best of 2024 issue. On the cover, we celebrate our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Lamar Jackson, as Bo Smolka profiles what the quarterback means to the community beyond the football field. Also inside, we celebrate the top people, performances, and moments of the year in local sports. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read the entire issue and find the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. CrownTrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR as we wind down for a Thursday edition of the program. Don't forget the Brigance Brigade's Winter Soiree is coming up Friday, February 21st, 1 week from tomorrow, at Martin's West. BriganceBrigade.org to get your tickets. It's going to be an incredible night to lift up with the Brigance Brigade, all the incredible work that they do. So go get your tickets right now, BriganceBrigade.org. And with that in mind, what you got for tidbit?
Tidbit-wise, we got, I guess I don't have it. Yeah, they're not a whole lot this week. But however, a couple weeks back, actually, Victor Wembanyama Pretty good defensive player. He gets a lot of blocks, and in fact set a new NBA record for most consecutive games recording a block, most consecutive games since 2000 to record a block. He broke the record with 77 like about a week and a half ago. He's up to 85 straight games with a block. He has not gone a game without a block since like the first week of January 2024.
I mean, it's weird because it's as much anomaly as it is, is he the greatest block? I don't know, but I mean, he's an alien. Like, we do know that much.
So I do have the list here. I'm not sure how many you'll be able to get.
Oh, good.
But try to get the top 4. Let's try to get the top
longest
4 here. Yeah,
streaks
longest
with at least one block.
Yeah, since 2000.
Since 2000. Okay, that's a little bit different. So Mutombo could still be on that list, but
not Mutombo.
Might have had one of these streaks before 2000. Shaq.
Not Shaq.
Ben Wallace.
Not Ben Wallace.
Dwight Howard.
Not Dwight Howard.
Just going well.
Yeah.
Just going super well since 2000. So probably not Dennis Rodman.
No, not Dennis Rodman.
Tim Duncan.
No Tim Duncan.
Sure.
All right, I have the full list now of all time guys.
Oh, good.
If we want to
thank God.
Wemby is 4th all time currently sitting at 5th all time, sitting at 85. All right, so name the 4. You did name one of them that is on the list. Mutombo 116 is the second longest streak.
The second longest.
So there are 4 guys actually, because one guy is on the list twice.
So this can go before 2000.
Yeah,
then?
all time.
This is going so well. Why not? Hakeem Olajuwon.
Hakeem Olajuwon is just behind Wemby, 83, but he would be in the top 5. 83 game block streak. January 93 to January 94.
Karl Malone.
No Karl Malone. Looking for 2. We're looking for 2 more here if we're trying to round at the top 5. All time. Who's got the longest block streak?
David Robinson.
Not David Robinson.
Alonzo Mourning.
Not Alonzo Mourning.
Patrick Ewing.
No. Patrick Ewing, yes, sorry. Yes, Patrick Ewing is number 1 on the list.
He's number 1?
145 game block streak. November 1988 spanning all the way to March 1990. 145 straight games with a block.
Sean Kemp.
Not Sean Kemp. This guy did it in the 80s. Mid-80s.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
No Kareem.
Robert Parrish.
No Robert Parrish.
Bill Walton.
No Bill Walton.
Okay.
He has had multiple 4 separate 70 block.
Oh,
streaks.
sure.
70 game block streaks.
I was just thinking about that, but
Utah Jazz.
Mark Eaton.
Ewing, Mutombo, Eaton, and Wemby. Those are the top 4 for you. Olajuwon top 5 consecutive block streaks. Just outside with a 76-game block streak in spanning from 2006 to 2007. Is Atlanta Hawk?
2006 to 2007 Atlanta Hawk. 2006 to 2007 Atlanta Hawk. I don't know.
Josh Smith.
Oh, okay. Sure,
yeah.
Josh Smith.
You weren't going to get Josh Smith?
Might have been a while.
We also had other guys just in that look since I have the top 15. Theo Ratliff from the Sixers.
Theo
had a 68
Theo
game.
Ratliff was a fun player.
Baltimore. Were they still the Baltimore? I guess they were Washington Bullets at this point. In the 80s, this Washington Bullets.
80s?
Manute Bol.
Manute Bol. Definitely never a Baltimore Bullet. No.
It was one, well, that's why
Definitely
I said it was
not
Washington.
close, yeah.
Miles Turner, actually, in 2020
not
to
bad.
2021,
All right.
had a 64 game consecutive game block streak.
Congratulations to all of them.
Your biggest blockers of all time. Wemby chasing history right now.
All right.
Next, he'll be passing Ewing's second longest streak in about 3 games.
I assume that Ewing will come to the game to ceremoniously shove it right.
Well,
in
maybe
his
once he
face
gets to
or
145.
something.
Yeah,
Sure, that'll be the case. All right, very good. Let's get tubular. Oh boy. Okay. All right then. All righty now. Good.
You ready?
No, I've been ready.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise this evening. Busy night after a few that weren't. Big Ten Network tonight, Nebraska, Maryland women at 6:30 from College Park. Then flip it around. Everybody stick around to watch the men at 8:30 from out in Lincoln. Both games on Big Ten Network. Towson's at home tonight against Delaware, 7 o'clock on Monumental. And again, Griffin not going, does not want to give Delaware the pleasure. He's going to turn his back to Delaware. How dare you turn your back on us? I turn my back on you. But for the rest of us, but you're going to watch it still.
Of course, yeah.
Monumental, 7 o'clock.
Gonna have to be, going to be in the lab with all the screens on.
Sure.
Lot going
That's right,
on
lot
tonight.
going on. ESPN Plus, Binghamton, UMBC at 6 o'clock. And from the PLL, the Whipsnakes and Cannons at 7.
Come back.
Need a bounce back.
Bounce back, boys.
effort tonight in the championship series.
Boston Card lost last night.
I know. Brian, let me know. Tough week for Griffin. Griffin might, if you've ever been thinking about buying Griffin a beer, this might be the week to do it. He can't afford it.
Yeah, thank you.
WLL Championship Series. Speaking of the Boston Guard, they face the Maryland Charm tonight at 9 o'clock. And
both teams looking to bounce back.
yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Both hard luck losers in their first game. This could be it.
What are we
This
going to
could
do? We're going to put Lizzie Colson on an island with Charlotte North. Is that the strategy?
Might be the play. Everything else. By the way, on the women's side, really big one tonight. UCLA USC 10 o'clock on Peacock. ESPN Four Nations face-off. The U.S. against Finland tonight at 8. Thunder Timberwolves 8:30 on TNT and True TV. Round 1 of the PGA's Genesis Invitational 4 o'clock on the Golf Channel. Which again, very selfish of everyone competing in that, knowing they've got the big matches coming up. Very selfish for them to do an individual event and not focus on the team. Just that's all I can think about the Genesis. Fox Sports 1 for the duels at Daytona tonight at 7 o'clock, and Access TV for TNA Impact at 8. Non-sports.
Yes. Season 4, Next Level Chef, out on Fox. That'll be followed by, of course, new episodes of Animal Control and Going Dutch.
I do like those shows.
The Traders, of course, on Peacock. Impractical Jokers on TBS.
Sure. Not for me.
Those both, I think, might be it for you, actually. Cobra Kai is the big one.
It's
season,
back.
yes. Season
This is
6,
the last one?
Part 3. I believe this is the final part, unless they're going to be like, actually, I don't know. But Season 6, Part 3, I believe, the final chapter of Cobra Kai out today on Netflix. It was also the Season 1 finale of Beast Games on Prime Video.
Yeah, that's a real.
And let's see, Kenan Thompson and Marcelo Hernandez and Kieran Culkin all on Fallon tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
There to promote Cobra Kai.
Really? Good for them.
Yeah,
They're just big fans?
That, and it's odd. Again, it's a two-parter. They're promoting Cobra Kai and All-Star Saturday Night. Is what they're there to promote. Yeah.
And I believe, that's it. Those are the big ones. Yeah, Cobra Kai. Yeah.
I like Cobra Kai. It's not brilliant. It's the right combination of nostalgia plus pleasant.
High production.
There is some high production involved. But it's pleasant to look at. Like it's fine.
Sorry, John. John said he wouldn't trade Mayo. He is his pick for Rookie of the Year.
Ooh, that's bold.
Yeah.
That's bold. And if he's platooning, he's probably not going to be Rookie of the Year.
He also said we got to get Jim Miller back on the show. We had Jim Miller on that week.
Yeah, it makes it tough. I know. I like it exhausts me, and it's funny because I think somebody told me that Emmanuel Acho went on somebody's show this week to defend his vote. I don't know what to say about this. It's over, and I kind of don't care. I know I shouldn't be that way. Like I know I should. I know I should say, let's get him on and grill him. And like, I just kind of over it. It's tough. I'm not saying no, or that we couldn't do it or wouldn't do it or whatever. It's just I have not prioritized that with Griffin this week because, like, you can't change it. Like,
wait, maybe they would.
Yeah,
Are
right.
we sure?
Like, imagine
Wait a
like
minute.
Emmanuel Aja being like, you know what? I think I got that one wrong. You can't change anything about it. We've done this ad nauseum over the years. I didn't care as much as you guys did last year about the fact that Aaron Schatz was the one guy that didn't vote for Lamar Jackson. I don't know. I just don't get worked up about this. I wish I did. Do I think they got it wrong? 1,000%. I think they got it wrong. Do I think it's kind of laughable that? Yep, I think it's kind of laughable. I think the way that it fixes is don't allow people to hide behind the definition of the word valuable. Like, say, it's the most outstanding player in the NFL. Don't let them hide behind this laughable, well, but he had, stop it. It's nonsense. But enough that I've got it in me, it's going to have to, for the most part, I think it's going to be for somebody else. If it was Rita would happily fight them all. I just don't. I don't know, man. I'm sorry. And if Griffin books somebody like that, I'll go through at least the motions of it, but it will kind of be empty because I kind of don't care. I hate that. I wish I had more piss and vinegar still in me about these types of things. I'm just being as honest as I can. Like, okay, great. So we did that. Now what? Like, what? How does that change? I've always been more like proactive than reactive. I want to know as much about like what the fallout's going to be for the Ravens and the cap and moving forward. How do they go win a Super Bowl next year? The draft interests me. I do want to know everything there is to know about Mike Green. Is Josh Connerly really a left tackle on day one? Like, I want to do those things if they move on from Ronnie Stanley. But the reactive stuff, that's why I always say, like, we do 5 plays, we do that, and then we move on from the last game. Because you can't change it. It's whatever it was. It's a weird, I don't know what just happened there. It's just kind of a weird staring into my soul situation. That's the way it goes. But I love you, John.
John said, I get it. I understand.
And if that's what Griffin books, we'll do it. You know what I mean? I have not told him to prioritize that. There's other things that I wanted to prioritize that also haven't come through. But, it is what it is. Today's show. Thank you to Vinnie Iyer. Thanks to Mike DeCourcy. Thanks also to Keith Law. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Can You Take Me Higher
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Stan's here tomorrow.
Sean Morris will join us tomorrow.
Big Ten Network. He's on the call tonight from Maryland, Nebraska, so we'll react to that with him.
This week in the
As
rest
I
of
just said,
baseball.
I want to be reactive, not proactive. The day after, I can still do that.
This week in the rest of baseball, of course.
Right, yes.
The big return.
This week in the rest of baseball.
Baseball's back.
Yeah. All right, thanks everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Visit Harford, Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland, the CIAA Tournament, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Royal Farms, of course, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Brigance Brigade, Costas Inn, MSAA, Maryland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Thursday evening. Go Maryland women, go Maryland men, go Towson, go UMBC, go Whipsnakes, go Charm. Duke sucks.